is 9:30 on a Thursday night, and you are tuned in to Beltway Radio and Beyond, which can mean one and only thing. This is ChipChat. Welcome to ChipChat, everybody. I'm Chip. Who are you, Tez?
You just told him, buddy.
Hey, welcome to the We Have a Microphone in Our Face club.
All right, here, look. I knew we would have to start here. For any of you guys that are watching live with us on Beltway Radio and Beyond, and you're watching on video, you will see that I have a microphone. Now, prior to that, I've usually used the built-in Apple MacBook microphone, which is extremely good. Let's start there. I think it's extremely good microphone.
That's right.
Yeah, it's extremely good. Great. Many people are saying that. Many people.
Yes, people.
Yes, yeah. But tomorrow morning we're gonna do something a little different with us, and I decided, go ahead and I invested and I'm an original, I really enjoy audio gear. So even to go buy a mic, it was kind of fun because I can see the 15, the 14-year-old me with me and my buddies wearing Chuck Levin's or Guitar Center or what's the other one that was out in college? Music Art. Maybe it was Atomic Music out in college.
Oh,
Park.
yeah. Atomic Music in high school.
In high school. Yeah. That, I really used to enjoy, that would be what we used to go and do it for fun. We would just go into the Guitar Center, and just fuck around on gear. And I missed that. So it was fun to kind of go back into this. Here was the part that I didn't necessarily enjoy. I was inside. I got this from one of the big box stores, right? We're not going to give free promotion. We got real things to promote today. But I was in there. I was looking. I was like, where the hell is this mic at? You would think it'd be in the audio section. No, they now have a section for folks. Wait for it. Content creators.
Oh God.
And it almost made me want to not pick up the mic. I was like, I can't believe I'm going to the content creator section. It just felt real icky. I don't know.
It's weird because now that's what people might call us, but
yeah,
we've been doing this for a decade,
right? So
we didn't have the word content.
Yeah, I still think of myself as doing radio.
This is a radio show.
It is. Exactly. That's why I enjoy it. That's why the live portion of it is always
right.
Fun. But yep, I do have a new mic and it sounds really good.
There you go. Your mic sounds nice.
Yes. Hey, I see you.
Hey.
Ding.
All right. So this is an incredibly fast-moving news week.
No, it's not. Of course.
So just bear with us. This could be a show.
I might have to log into X.
I did. I had to.
You had to, right?
I had to go over there and take a look and see what all was going on. It was a wild day on the bird site, let me tell you.
Look,
it's still going pretty wild over there. Yeah. But that's not what we're going to talk about just yet. We do have a guest this week. Yes. Scott Anderson is going to join us. He's from the Ontario Home Builders Association. He's going to tell us what he thinks about the tariffs, eh?
Excited. Oh,
right? Because as a approximate Canadian by way of curling, I have adopted a lot of their language.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we talking Ice Cats versus the
yeah.
This is very fitting right now if anybody's watching Lord Stanley's Stanley's finals,
Yes. Well,
last night.
Shout out to the 51st state. Edmonton got the first win. So good for them. So anyway, also this week we've got headlines, which grew since I printed the show. The Trump people are attacking each other, which at the time we wrote this was a different, much narrower version of that. It's expanded exponentially, I think is the only fair way to say this. And Chip, me, once again, gets to explain why it's not safe to be Jewish in America. Because it's not. It never has been. Plus, we got Okra that could save the world. FEMA needs some help. It's going to be a show.
It always is.
Whew, buddy. And then there are Gaza updates that we didn't even know. We didn't want to know about.
I didn't read that article.
I read.
You read it?
It's not good. It's everything.
Because of course that's what that. Anyways, we'll hold off on that.
We'll get to that, but it's gonna play exactly what you expect.
We know. We did.
Yeah. So anyway, wow. Do you have a word for
Yeah, it's a clear word.
You've got a clear word.
I was here early today. It's weird. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, you're all tuned in and everything.
I know, right? I don't know what's happening right now. I need to gotta go revert back to my do nothing.
No. Keep
That's
this energy. I like it.
You like that? And 1% better.
1%. Infinitely better is what it is.
You know,
1 is infinitely more than 0.
Yeah, right. If I was at 1, I go to 2. That's huge.
That's huge. Yeah, it's 100% increase.
Right.
All right. So yeah, I've got a word. Let's see. Are you ready?
Let's see if it works.
All right. So sit back, grab some
lumber.
It's ketamine time. You're listening to the best show, the only show, Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweet.
All right, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
What's popping up?
All right, now it's time for the headlines.
Time for the headlines.
Yeah. Okay, you want to go first?
Oh, sure. I'll take the first stab at this. Trump tweeted a link and claimed that Joe Biden was a clone that replaced the real Joe Biden years ago. So great, our very stable genius president lost to the clone.
That's right. Trump's elevation of this nonsensical and dangerous conspiracy was barely noticed by the media, which instead spent many hours reporting on a candle heist in Fairfax, Virginia.
I was not aware of that. In the least surprising news of the new Trump term, Elon and Trump finally turned on each other in a colossal social media fight. Trump threatened Elon's government contracts and called electric cars stupid. They're not stupid. Elon called Trump deranged and stated that Trump is included in the Epstein report. Duh. JD Vance hid behind the couch, which of course is now sticky.
Yes.
Yeah. This is the one. It's like most people are reskeeting. I know no one likes that word on Blue Sky. I feel weird saying that. Probably going to get clipped. But they were saying that JD Vance is a stress fucking a couch somewhere. I know. I was like, that's for you specifically. It's just like when I saw it, I immediately thought of you. So
I've heard this stuff about how he's had to make a terrible sofa's choice between the two.
Oh my. Oh.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Not great.
Not at all.
No bell for that one.
No bell.
The feud between the richest man in the world and the world's dumbest man started after Elon criticized Trump's big, beautiful bill for adding too much to the national debt. Republicans in Congress all claim to have never read the bill, which, of course, they all voted for.
Right, of course. Why would we read the bill? Oh, come on now. So it seems foolish. Much like his driverless cars, Elon's Tesla stock crashed today amid the online battle. Not content with one falling piece of his empire, Elon also swore to ground all of his Dragon rockets, dealing a blow to the federal government and the military. Blowing the military is what PHF does on the weekend. Oh God.
Yeah. If any other high-ranking official had tweeted something as insane as the president was executed and replaced with a robot clone, the whole world would have reacted with grave concern. But since it's coming from someone everyone already knows is insane, they went on about their day.
Yeah, it's like whatever. Like nothing can surprise us anymore.
No.
Ukraine smuggled drones deep into Russia, and then used them to attack their air force, still sitting on the tarmac, making the first time someone has smuggled anything into Russia.
That's right. Most of the time, they're trying to get out.
Oh yeah, it's very
The attack on the Russian bomber fleet came as Ukraine and Russia were about to start what are now going to be very awkward peace talks in Istanbul.
I mean, you gotta punch back. Okay, well, here we go. Poland held an election this week in which the Trump-backed populists won by offering to help all the Polish people with their light bulbs.
Yes. The election was as tight as the screen doors on the Polish Navy's submarine fleet.
Embarrassed woman and a somehow current senator from Iowa, Joni Ernst, told a crowd of people worried about healthcare that they were all going to die. It was crazy to hear that. It's like up there with like you only get two dolls.
Right.
Like right up 1A and 1B. She later apologized in a video from a cemetery where she doubled down and sarcastically said she was glad she didn't have to also bring up the Tooth Fairy. The Tooth Fairy responded by calling Senator Ernst an, quote, out of touch lunatic, end quote.
That's right. The Supreme Court held that Trump could continue the deportation of Venezuelan migrants while the migrants challenged their deportations one at a time, thus guaranteeing Salmon Alito still has some lawn care for the summer.
Yeah, it rains, it grows really fast. You need someone to cut the grass. The Atlantic hurricane season is officially started this week, right? Yippee! Promoting a huge uptick in sales of Sharpies, because that's right. You can just draw 180 a line and the hurricane
goes the other direction.
Yeah, it's like a heat-seeking missile.
That's right. Father's Day is right around the corner, or what Eric Trump calls Sunday.
All right. Elon lashed out at the House passed. Is we calling it OBA, the one big beautiful,
the one big beautiful act is
act.
what it
is. What it is, yeah, right. Saying it would massively increase the debt owed by the USA, but we think he's mostly upset about the end of his ketamine subsidy.
That's right.
That looked a little crazy.
Special K, man. South Korea elected a new president who is not from the party of the guy they just impeached. Marco Rubio called and congratulated the wrong person, citing the doctrine of, quote, they all look alike.
Sorry, that's not funny, but probably true.
Yeah.
The Dutch government collapsed this week after a far-right leader, Geert Wilders? Geert Wilders. Oh, sorry, I forgot about Wilders. Pulled his party out of the governing coalition, citing differences in cheese preferences. I mean, that's real, though,
Well, it's Netherlands.
Yeah. What else could they be upset about?
Pete Hegseth ordered the ship named for gay rights leader Harvey Milk to be renamed. No word yet on if the Navy is demanding a gayer name, but the USS RuPaul does have a nice ring to it.
I'm not mad at it. No, that could sell. That could sell the 7 Seas.
Has. It's the Navy.
All right. Hopefully I don't butcher this person's name here because I want to get.
No, it's spelled the way it sounds.
Okay. Locally, Aisha Brave Boy. Aisha, excuse me, Aisha.
I didn't think you were gonna have trouble with that part of it.
Sorry on that one. Won the special election to succeed Angela Alsobrooks, defeating the Republican in the race 90%, 10%. So there you have it. PG County is officially 10% white.
There you go.
Sorry, what Cheverly, I guess, somewhere around there.
Bowie, maybe.
Bowie as well, somewhere there.
Yeah,
there's white people in fucking PG County.
There are plenty of white people in PG County. They just don't vote.
It's named after Prince George, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Kind of started one way,
Yeah. Okay. Not touching that with a 20-foot pole.
Yeah, no.
All right. We're going to take a break. But before we do, here is our first live read. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Men, are you worried that your wife or lady friend no longer has functioning ovaries? Don't listen to JD Vance and chuck her out to pasture. Take her down to menostart.com and let their efficient team evaluate her for whatever is making her so damn cranky. Maybe she needs a new age-appropriate fitness routine, or maybe you're just a putz. Either way, Coach and Dr. Cawthorn can set things right. Learn more about why even men should care about women's health at menostart.com. There's a dash in the middle, meno-start.com. The dash is for hot flash.
There you go. That's good. Look, I have a few recordings of reading a few that I will send you guys at a different time that you'll find very funny because live reads are very hard.
Yeah, well, apparently
they're very difficult. But I feel like our show should lean into the foolishness and
yes,
that's what we do.
Well, we're making it a lot better by talking about it.
Yeah, look. Look, I mean, look, shit. That's a promotion right there. Hey, where else are you going to hear that at?
I don't know. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Scott Hansen from Canada about the tariffs. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweet.
Er redet wie ein harter Kerl, twittert wie meiner. Aber sobald es soweit ist, versagt er wie Konfetti und Europa schrie Trudeau an, er stiehlt zu viel und dein Käse muss weg. Die EU hat Kanada verleumdet, Trump entwischt wie Ted Cruz ein Astrologe. Oh nein! Fängt einen Kampf an und rennt dann weg wie ein Matador im PCC. TACO 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 brüllt wie ein Löwe. Kratzt wie eine Kakerlake, ein Turm aus harten Kerlen. Meine Senos. Er bellte nach Peking, keine Chips, keine Handys, dann gab er nach, als die Wall Street mit Steinen warf, versuchte, französische Lockerungen zu verzollen, aber als Renault ging, versteckte er sich hinter Lieferwagen. Er verbietet, wählt und macht dann einen Rückzieher, löscht Staatsdeals oder bekommt einen Herzinfarkt. Von Handelskriegen bis Golfplatztheater, heiße Luft. Er ist ein Taco Taco Taco. Trump kneift immer. Es ist so hart für X. Schwach, wenn er bedrängt wird, kann niemanden überzeugen, einfach nur ein großes Chaos. TACO 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 Taco. Die globalen Führer kennen alle den Code, warte einfach eine Woche und er wird implodieren. Er sagte, keine deutschen Autos mehr. Dann kaufte er einen Biber mit vergoldeten Waren. Behauptete, die Zölle würden die Mauer finanzieren, aber Mexiko hat immer noch nichts bezahlt. TACO 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 Taco. Trump kneift immer. Hallo. Bluffs und Fehler sind offensichtlich. Keiner nimmt sie ernst. TV dieser Stand. Immer Schlägerei. Siehst du, Christus ist gefallen. Oh je.
Wenn er also deinen Handel mit Untergang und Finsternis bedroht, gib ihm einfach Zeit. Er wird den Raum verlassen, denn so ist das Spiel. Kein Grund zu schreien. Trump kneift immer. Ich hasse diesen traurigen Verlierer, Mr. Newberger. Wer bin...
Oh my God! Welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I'm Chip. With me is Ted.
I don't know about that, Derek, because when I got it, I didn't. When I first heard it, there was no narration. So
like weird German narration.
Yeah, I know.
Oh.
I guess it needed to be some mild representation. So it's like,
that was incredible. I couldn't understand why the people were moving like that. But now I mean,
they're not real
because it's not real.
They're not real. That's I don't have words.
The inflatable Trump chickens is like my favorite. I want some of them. I need them.
What? I just want to know what the prompt was to start to create that.
Like, make a Mexican music video.
Like you probably got to even refine it to even get more detail. Actually, I don't want to talk about this.
Well, because it wasn't like norteño music, and it wasn't like mariachi. It was like, sort of pop, slightly Latin, but not.
What a German person might think that.
Yeah, what Germans think reggaeton sounds like.
Right. I was like, yeah, this is what prompted was used?
German reggaeton. Oh my God. Okay.
Wow.
Shifting gears north of the border, Scott Anderson works in the home construction industry in Ontario, Canada, which I'm told is soon going to be Ontario, USA. As new tariff policies keep changing, like the menu at your local taco truck, very fitting, we thought it would be a good idea to ask him how this is impacting things north of the border. Scott, welcome to Chip Chat.
Oh, thanks, guys, for having me here.
Okay, so that was the most Canadian intro you've ever. Did you throw in like a line about Timmy Hose and hockey in there, or what?
Look, all I know is I'm never going to look at tacos the same way again after watching that skit before this. So
sorry for
tacos. That's all I'm going to think about now.
Sorry for subjecting you to that.
If there's one thing that this show is good at, it is making our guests regret coming on this show.
Yeah, we're batting 1,000 on that.
Yeah,
excellent.
Where we're at with that.
Good stat.
All right, so let's just jump into this. Tell us a little bit about the Ontario Home Builders Association and what you're doing, in general, and then we'll talk about the tariffs.
Sure. So we're a industry association that represents builders, renovators, suppliers. In Ontario, it's part of a network of associations across Canada with a national presence as well. So we basically lobby the government. We try and show them better ways to create a policy environment to get our builders able to build. Our current government's, put a target out there of about 1.5 million new homes by 2031. They're trying to get us to work through that. And, for the last decade or so, our government of all political stripes have done pretty well creating a housing crisis for us. We don't have enough supply. They're too expensive to build. And government solution is just continuing to botch things. So we had a nice little crisis here that was self-created. We were working our way through that, going back and forth with government, trying to point out where they've gone wrong. So, I had lots of things to talk about. And then all of a sudden, your president comes along 4 months ago and starts finding a new way to, torment other countries around him. Obviously, our reaction as Canadians is, we thought we were pretty good with the Americans. We thought we were, aligned and friends and all that stuff. And, you elect in a new president and he decided to change things up for us. So, again, our nice little self-created crisis is all of a sudden now getting whacked from south of the border.
Well, we hold on. Just to clarify a few things. Yeah. Half of us didn't vote for that guy. So
that is true.
We didn't all do this. Number one. Number two, it seems like Mark Carney benefited greatly from Trump's election. Yep. And since you mentioned that governments of all stripes and in Canada, even your conservatives would be flaming liberals here, have mucked up your housing environment. We, too, have a massive housing shortage here in the States, and we seem to be incapable of building our way out of it for probably a lot of the same reasons.
Yep.
Because the obvious solution of build more houses seems to be very difficult for people to understand.
Scott, can we double click on that, right? I mean, because
sure.
I feel like that the goal was, how many was it? Was it 1.5 million new homes? Right, it feels like it's a pretty strong goal, right? I don't know if it gets you to to meet what the crisis might be, because I'm not sure. Obviously, the Canadian
there's only
numbers.
25 people in Canada.
Oh, shut up!
That's
right, of course. But
and they're all related.
Yeah.
but now I just want to find out, right, because you're lobbying the government, and I was reading Abundance, right, which is like the book in the zeitgeist right now from Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson. They talk a lot about this, and is it like zoning laws? Is it the government not wanting to land? Where is the bureaucracy kind of hitting?
How are they screwing it up?
Yeah, right. The simpler way of saying that.
Yeah. So, a few ways. So one, our land costs are just nuts. So places, Toronto, Vancouver, Ottawa, They're just unachievable, unreachable price wise, just on that alone. But then government found a way to torque that up even more. So on average, it takes us from the time that a builder puts in its first application for approval to get what it needs to be able to put a shovel in the ground, anywhere from 2 to 5 years on average for a single family home. So that's just insane.
That's the permitting process?
It's the what's called site plan approval, going through to the permitting process. So this is our municipalities. Ontario, I'll primarily can speak to the Ontario situation. We've got 444 municipalities, population of about 16 million or so.
Wow.
Of those 444 municipalities, there's about 500 different ways and rules that they like to put builders through. So if you're building in Toronto, for example, you're also building in Mississauga, and you're also building in London. You have 3 different application processes, 3 sets of fees, 3 sets of timelines, 3 sets of everything. So they just find ways to slow that process down. The other thing is governments have found that houses are a great way for them to raise revenue. So right now, about 35% of the cost of a new home goes to all 3 of our levels of government: municipal, provincial, federal. They are the greatest benefactors every time a new home gets sold. They are the ones that make the most money from that. So we've got government reps standing up and saying we must do more to make housing more affordable. We got to make it so that Ontario families are able to get the homes that they need. But yet they are the ones that are standing in the way the most of getting that in the ground. Everyone seems to think that builders are walking around with these 30, 40, 50% margins every time that they sell a house. They're lucky if it's 10. And that's where that's gross. They still have to pay their costs out of that. So governments on one hand saying we must do more. It's like the NIMBYism. It's like we must do more to help the homeless, but don't put anything in my neighborhood.
Say it again.
Right? Same damn thing.
Yes.
We talk frequently to a friend of the show, Eric Saul. He's an architect here in the DC area. And he also writes the Tacoma Torch, which is a very funny publication. And a lot of what he's talking about, he's often like poking at the well-meaning, very liberal city of Tacoma Park,
right?
That then, because they're so well-meaning, basically paralyzes them from doing anything of any use. And they end up, there's this parking lot at a place called Tacoma Junction that there have been, 15 different plans about redeveloping and what they want to do with the parking lot, including a bunch of housing, but because they can't get out of their own way, it's still a parking lot. And they want to keep it a parking lot, apparently. So are the regulations and things, because we have permitting, I go through that in my regular job. We've got county stuff that we got to get through. The state doesn't really get involved, but it's all at the county level, and they can be really picky about permits, and it does often seem like it kind of depends on like what inspector you draw.
Yes.
But is it because most of the regulations that you guys have to deal with are well-intentioned, they're just overboard, or is it because it's like a corruption layer cake?
It's probably a combination of all of that. So some municipalities are actually trying to do the right thing. They're trying to lower the cost. They're trying to speed up the process. One of our cities in the Greater Toronto area here, Mississauga, the mayor there just put a new program in place that she calls it 3 strikes and you're in. So the back and forth that would go between a builder and a municipality with their officials, they would go back and forth on the, what the setback is, what this is, what the quality of this, some type of environmental process that they want to put on top of that. So you go back and forth. And this is how we get to 2, 3, 5 years before something actually gets approved and a shovel gets in the ground. She's implemented something, this three strikes and you're in, where if it goes back and forth between a builder and her city officials 3 times, the next step is she puts the planning department from the municipality and the builder staff in the same room. They don't leave until they have a deal. And when they walk out, they have an approved site plan.
Wow.
So there is some innovation that can be done, but we've got many municipalities. City of Toronto is one of the worst. City of Hamilton, for example, is another one of the worst. Give you an example. So you mentioned about architects. So when a builder puts a site plan application in, they have an engineering drawings that are part of that. And it's stamped by an engineer, which is a regulated professional. Every time they put that stamp on there, their license is on the line. If they botch that up, they lose their ability to practice. Not unlike a lawyer, not unlike an accountant. When many, at least half of our municipalities, when they get these applications in, they do one of two things. They either send it into municipal staff to review it. This is somebody's already put the stamp on it. They know what they're doing. They're licensed. They're regulated. They review the engineer's work. That can take anywhere from 5 to 9 months, and often the ones that are reviewing it are not engineers.
Right.
So that's one way they do it. The other way they do it, and this is my personal favorite that is just insane, is that they say we're going to require you to peer review it, meaning you need another engineer to look at your diagram. The builder pays to have this review. This is anywhere from 15 to 25,000 on average. That takes 5-6 months to do it, and usually the engineer, especially in small towns, that is doing it is the one that didn't get the job with the builder. So guess what? Right. They find a whole lot of shit wrong with it, and they send it back for review. So you're going back and forth on that, and that 25,000 that they charge to do that review, guess where that goes? That goes onto the price of the new home that the new home buyer is paying for.
Yeah, we have to do engineer drawings here too, but and the people reviewing them are usually not engineers. But is the reason that it takes so long because for those reviews is because the offices are understaffed and they're overwhelmed with so many of these applications? Like if they had a few more people, could they be faster?
But they've created the problem, though.
Yeah,
they've already created the problem.
Yeah.
Like they shouldn't.
I understand that, but I'm asking that because there is this idea that the reason governments in general, whether it's in Canada or in the States or wherever, are slow to process applications is because they're just sitting around being lazy government workers. When the reality is, when you go there and see it, it's that they've got this crush of, inbox, and they've only got 3 people to review them, and they're just absolutely inundated. There's no way they can get through them, even if everything was perfect. So is that part of the problem that these sort of, I'm projecting here, right? But in the States, especially at the county level, we have these tiny governments that are chronically underfunded with just no real expertise or capacity to handle the number of requests that they get.
So it's a good question to ask, because the answer I'm going to give you is it could be one of two things. So one is absolutely that they could be understaffed. You get small municipalities, they might have 1-2 planners there. Right. And, if there's new developments coming in and there's a boom there, they're going to have, they're going to be swamped with new applications. Absolutely. Part of the problem, though, too, aside from the resources, is just, as you said, like they've created the problem themselves. So because they're allowed to do whatever they want at their own local discretion, even though there is provincial legislation that says it should be a certain way, it's gone unpoliced. It's just been allowed to erode for far too long. We have applications, municipalities, and we do a study on this about every 2 years. We go and do a benchmarking review. We have municipalities, small municipalities like the town of Caledon. They, on average, ask for over 100 different types of reports for one application to go through. So when you already have a resourcing problem and you're creating new problems because you wanted to create a checklist, who goes through 100 reports? Nobody does. They don't have time. So they're asking for these. These are costly reports, anywhere from $5,000 to $100,000, depending on what it is. Things like a sunshade study, a wind study, a flood risk report study. All of these things, when you add on, so you get told we need these 5 reports. You put your application in, you say I need these 5 reports. Builder goes away, gets these, brings them back, says, okay, now we need these other 17 reports on top of that. So they go back and forth. There's one example. We have a county here called Oxford, and it's like a rural kind of farm type municipality in the county, but they were doing a small subdivision just outside of the small town that's there. So when I was out doing an event with them one night, I had one builder pull me aside and it's like, when you go back to Toronto, I want you to use this as an example. And I've used this many times in talking to government officials. They put their application in, they had to do all these studies. And the one study they came back with, it says, I want you to do a flood risk report. Like, okay, I need to, you're serious. You want a flood risk report on this, where I'm building this home. Yep, I need that. So the builder lost his mind, went in, talked, like found the individual he was dealing with, said, you have to come out and inspect this property with me. You need to come see the site, because I know damn well you haven't seen the site. So he gets out there, brings the municipal official out, standing on the main street of the town, points up to the top of a hill and said, that's where the house is being built. This is where the application is. So you want a flood study on that? If that area up there on the top of the hill floods, this whole town's gone. I think you should be focused more on that. Guess what? They took away the requirement for having to do a flood risk study. So the guy had not even gone out to look at it.
Yeah.
Okay, see, that's where, and I have a larger question around like these studies, right? Because like a flood study in a regular place or low-lying place seems good, right? That seems good. We probably want to know, like that's a helpful thing. And I think around a lot of environment regulations, right? Like those feel like good things. But one thing I've noticed, and I think this could also be applied to whether who gets like the contracts to build things or things of that nature, and making sure like specific communities have more like agency, like those are great things. But it also feels like some of the stuff becomes a blocker as well. And I'm wondering kind of where is the line? If we just use the environment as the example, it's like, all right, because if you come out and you looked at the damn house is sitting on the top of a hill, like I don't even know why that's not happening, but like that's where what would be a good balance? Is it just coming out to see it, or is it streamlining the process where again it's just a few reports?
What if they had like an extra person that goes and looks? I mean, like that is the question. Why are they not doing things like going and looking?
Yeah.
So part of it could be around the resources, just as you said before. They've only got 2 planners or officials in the office. So sure, that makes sense. The bigger thing for us, though, is why they're asking for these reports in the first place.
Right.
So the government that we have in place now, the Conservative government here in Ontario, we've got a new housing minister who's only been in the job for 2 months. So he was a business guy. He used to run a company called Master Feeds. Knew what it was like to have to make payroll, knew what it was like to do expansions, and could actually read a set of financial statements. Let's be clear. That's what is partially setting him apart. My first sit down with him almost 2 months ago, the first thing he asked me for, show me a typical builder's pro forma and show me where the pain points are. What are the things that are stopping it? Like that was amazing to be able to hear that, somebody that understood. So he just passed legislation through, we have to do first, second, and third reading of it, and then it gets royal assent. Royal assent was issued today, in fact, on a bill that passed yesterday. He gets to now write a regulation that says he can limit the number of reports municipalities can ask for. So that town of Caledon, I said over 100 reports. He's thinking maybe 10 max. And of those 10, they have to be reasonable. They like for the flood risk study, this is already zoned for residential. Why? That's the process when they do their official plan, that they should figure out if that's a floodplain. Right. So therefore,
why is the information there? They already have the new report.
Yeah,
exactly. So that's they should be figuring this out. That's why they're there. So
who adjudicates reasonable? Is there an appeals process, a court process, or does that just take too long? Nobody goes through it, or what?
Well, if the minister can regulate this, and he puts like regulations in place that says up to 10 reports, these are the types of reports you can ask for, and anything else beyond that you can't. If the municipality wants to contest that, we have this thing called the Ontario Land Tribunal. It's like an adjudicative body, kind of like a court, but not with a judge, just with adjudicators. They can go through that. Problem is that takes months, sometimes years, to be able to get through that process. So we're working with government over the summer to put these regulations in place by the fall to make sure that they're reasonable. Like what is realistic here? The other study that we did most recently is it did an estimate of what the cost of these municipal delays are. So if you we went through and looked at, did some averages. It's about $3,000 to $5,000 a door per month, because these builders are having to finance these projects. And if it's taking 3 to 5 years to do it, you know what's been happening with interest rates in the last little while. They're starting to come down, but they were the highest we've seen in quite some time. They're putting in a hell of a lot of money to finance these projects. And as they're delaying and crews aren't able to work because they're still getting these approvals through, that price, where does it go? Oh yeah, onto the cost of a home. Our average cost of a home in the city of Toronto here right now is $1.4 million. That's an average.
Sounds like BC. I mean, this is going to seem like maybe an inappropriate question, but whenever you see these kind of things where there's a lot of barrier to entry, or barrier to operation, and clearly against the will of the group, right? If everybody knows that there's a housing shortage, there is a question of who is benefiting from this current system. I mean, why, if everybody wants there to be more houses, what is the impediment to fixing this fakakta system you've got?
Well, where municipalities are doing well, and let's be clear, of our 444, there are some that are doing really, really well. We have a city north of us called Barrie, and the mayor there is hyper focused on streamlining the internal processes within City Hall, making sure that stuff gets done, making sure that it's a reasonable approach. They're actually building more homes there than in a lot of places. I mentioned another one, the city of Mississauga. We have these things called development charges, which is what municipalities charge builders, which are ultimately paid for by home buyers, to build infrastructure. So roads, water, wastewater, all that type of stuff. So our average development charge in larger cities is about $150,000. That's about $1,250 US dollars, right? So I do the conversion back, but 150,000 Canadian dollars on these DCs, and that gets added again right on to the cost of a new home. So the mayor of Mississauga said these are too high. They cut their DCs in half, so they were about 120, so down to now 60,000. They went from, before she cut them, they had an application for about 2,000 units of new homes to be built. As soon as they cut them, it went up to 12,000, like immediately after, within a month. So guess what? If you make the prices reasonable, builders can build it. It's not that builders think that it's too high. They don't build because nobody can afford to buy the homes that they build.
Right. But who is benefiting from this current system? I mean, if the municipalities ultimately make out better when there's more houses, like you said, because then they get money from the taxes, on the house. If the province makes out better when there's more houses, if the federal government makes out better when there's more houses, and if everybody wants the policy of more houses, bringing down the cost of housing, and if the developers want to build more houses so that they can make more money, everybody seems to want to do this thing. Who is benefiting from the current situation?
The best answer I can give you is politicians getting to be politicians. Our statement to government is you got to get the politics out of these approvals processes. It's killing us in terms of doing this. Our builders that's what they do. They build homes. So obviously they want to build homes. You have municipal officials standing up saying, we have a housing crisis. We need more housing supply. We need to do this. But when you look at their individual processes, it makes it so that they either purposely seem to want to slow it down. They want to make builders have to incur additional costs and make housing unaffordable. But when you look at it, it's not rational. Nobody's making money off of homes not being built.
So then that's the answer to my question. Is nobody's making money at it? So this is a thing where people have sort of talked themselves into a problem and they can't untalk themselves out of it. And I want to be clear, I don't think anybody is against there being sensible regulation on home building and safety and environmental impact and access to markets and all of that. I think everybody wants that. So this does sound like a good example of that Ezra Klein theory of well-meaning intent, well-meaning regulations getting in the way of the stated goal in the first place.
Let me give you another example, and you tell me whether you think this is well-intentioned or well-meaning. So, City of Hamilton, you put in an application as a builder. You want to build more homes. You put in your application. They've just implemented a month ago a whole new requirement where they want, as part of your site plan approval, that what you need to be able to get approval to build, they want you to include your architectural drawings to prove that in the kitchen cabinetry, you have at least 3 different recycle bins built into it. And this is what they think is the biggest priority to ensuring quality housing in the city of Hamilton.
I mean,
yeah, I can't really get down with that one. I don't know about that one seems kind of crazy. I gotta be honest on that. I don't know. But yeah,
I mean, we like to recycle.
I love the recycle. I don't, and I don't necessarily think that's going to fix climate change either. But don't keep recycling though. But a question I had, because you see this here in the States, is where are we at with the idea of what housing looks like, right? For a long time, right after the New Deal here in America, it's the picket fence, single family homes, but it's clear that can't be, that's not sustainable. And not to say I'm trying to get rid of all the single family homes, but like around zoning, do you find like north of the border, or is it the same thing that
you have the missing middle problem?
Yeah, like are we able to build like dense housing by public transportation and things of that nature, or people right that are already there, the NIMBYism, are they like, nah, fuck that, I don't know, sounds good, I'll put my lovely sign in my yard, but nah, I'm not fucking around with an apartment building in my neighborhood?
So we have, in the last couple of years, this provincial government of ours has passed legislation that actually allows them to do just what you described. So where we're on transit zones, transit areas where there are, subways and buses and all of that, the idea is that instead of gentle density, which are the single family homes in the suburbs, this is where we need much more intensive density. So this is condos, apartments, stacked towns, all of that around a transit hub. And so what they've done there is they've done reductions in these development charges, makes it more cost effective to build there. The zoning allows for much higher density than what the municipality would normally want. We still face some NIMBYism there where, someone that has bought a house there 40 years ago, they don't want to see anything change. So they're up in arms. And the one thing, because, us as Canadians, we seem to care way too much what other people think. And we keep asking them. And then when they say, oh, we've got people here that are opposing it, and then they don't know what to do. So we also trip over ourselves because we go back. Well, if we've got a lot of opposition, let's go back out and ask even more questions and see what people think. Well, guess what? They still hate it and they're not going to do it. So we've got a government now that seems to have found its balls where it's actually going to be able to move some of this stuff forward. But for the longest time, it was, can't we everyone just get what they want out of this? And it's just impossible. Change is not always going to have
trade-offs, right? But
correct.
I think that how do I put this Canadianly? Y'all are too fucking polite. You need to knock off that shit sometimes and just make a move.
I can tell you, it's haunting us now. Like this is how we end up creating our own crisis here. And when we say the government has identified we need 1.5 million new homes, we've only got 5.5 million of them now in Ontario. So that's like about a 20-25% bump on what we've already got. So this is a pretty significant crisis for us. And we've had, for municipalities for far too long, have decided to dictate to builders the type of houses that we should have. So for the last 5 years, for example, the City of Toronto has said for condos, it should be 1 bedroom and 1+ bedrooms. That's all we're going to approve. Well, guess what? We have a whole glut of 1 and 1.5 bedroom homes that nobody wants because they have families of 3 or 4 people. So, builders live in the communities they build. They know who their customers are. But municipalities, those elected officials, in many cases where it's the best job they will ever get, think that they can decide urban planning.
Do you have, we have a federal system, we have states, we have counties that get in the way, but is there a way that there could be, federal policy that could mush some of this out? Or do you have, we we could never do that, right? If the federal government tried to do anything about zoning, for example,
God gracious,
they would never be able to do it because the states would
Right.
be all up in arms of like, how
Correct.
dare you?
and
tell
then
us
an
what to do.
actual arms, like armed
If we
conflict,
have
it would
civil
be
wars
that.
over that kind of thing. So like, and we had one. It was about property, believe it or not.
Yes, it exactly was. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
But like, and then the same thing happens if Richmond tells the counties like how they need to zone for, you know, data centers or housing or anything like that. The counties like lose their shit and
Yep.
react very. Do you have any way to like fast track that? Could Carney, you know, push something through in Ottawa that would change all of that, or is that something you have that sort of federalism too?
We have a degree of the federalism. So our Constitution has two sections in it. One, it recognizes federal
One in
powers.
English, one in French.
And-
Got it.
Absolutely, and that's always subject to change. But the other part recognizes the power of the provinces. Municipalities aren't in our Constitution.
Oh,
So they are created by the provincial government. So they're a creature of the province, as we call them. So when a municipality does something that we don't like, or that the province doesn't like, then they can change it. They either change it by reg, change it by legislation, or just give a ministerial direction.
Gotcha.
When it comes to the feds, they often like to play in the municipality's backyard and come in with big bags of money and give them incentives to do something. And it pisses off the provinces
wow.
because they go in, you know, behind their backs and do certain things. Now they publicly have to say, well, this is good for homeowners or home buyers because it's money coming from the federal level of government for infrastructure, money coming from the province for infrastructure. So they all pretend to play nice and they smile when they do the photo ops and all of that. But at the end of the day, it's only the provinces that can change the rules for municipalities, not the feds.
Got it. Okay.
And we don't even have the gun problem.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Enjoy that. Ugh.
a lot of other things
Yeah.
as well. We're not going to do that. But what we do want to talk about is the tariffs.
Yep.
Okay. So now you've done a good job explaining to us about your self-inflicted wounds. We
Yep.
are going to now ask you about the wounds that we are, for whatever reason, inflicting on you. Now, before we get too far into that, you know, Canada and the United States, we have a long history together. We've, for the most of the time, done everything kind of together. We have Strategic Air Command and NORAD and all of that stuff. We
need your wood.
Yeah,
Yep.
well, not even to that. Like when America and Britain go off to go do some war stuff, Canada's like, "Can we come along?" And we're like, "Yeah, come on, let's go." You know, and we like your hockey, and you know, there's a lot of things that we share in common. And we pretend to be you when we're outside in Europe because we don't want to have to answer for being American. So like, there's a lot of this stuff. Now, with all that being said, the U.S. now has these like weird tariffs on Canadian, and specifically we're talking about like lumber, and then we just got the increase in the metal stuff, the steel and aluminum came through today. Yes, I said it right for you. This is British, so we have to say it for him.
Aluminium.
Aluminium. So like, why the fuck do we have a tariff on your lumber that we need so desperately for our housing crisis?
Yep, I know. It's so, you know, look at fundamentals. Tariffs are meant to fix a trade imbalance.
Right.
When you look between Canada and the US, despite what your president's thought of the day is, there is no trade imbalance between Canada and the US. There hasn't been for, you know, ever. So normally when you have tariffs getting imposed, you can model, you can forecast, you can estimate what those impacts are going to be and for how long. Because normally when you fix the trade imbalance, the tariffs go away. Well, this has now been weaponized by your president in terms of how he's approaching this. You know,
it's saying your president.
It's true, man. What the hell are you talking about?
Well,
like,
you know,
it is.
It's your passport. It's American, right?
Exactly, right? What are we talking? Yes, that is.
Well, the president. We'll just call him that.
No.
Give him a good name. You know,
your president is correct. We should be able to. We should sit in this right now. I'm with that. It is.
Why do I have to sit in it for that orange motherfucker?
Sorry.
Yeah. Well, we're just on the receiving end.
Call him, fine.
Well, death by 1,000 price tags is how it's feeling on the tariff side of it right now. Like just as of yesterday, 25 going up to 50%
on steel.
On steel
That we need. to build all those cars that he thinks we're going to build in America.
Yeah, all we have to do is take all the Canadian plants, move them to the US, and apparently the whole world is better. Just ask
And it
them.
only takes a couple of minutes to do it if they really wanted to.
It does. Everybody just moves, teleports down. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
But the thing that, was, so there were two things that came out of this in terms of the public. They did not understand that steel that is pulled out of the ground in Canada, goes to the US, gets some type of processing done, comes back into Canada, gets manufactured, done. The final processing gets done in the US, then it's shipped up and put into some type of a home construction supply chain. So the back and forth thing, and what people have started to acknowledge is, wait a minute, if it's going back and forth 4 times, does it actually attract the tariff 4 times? The answer is hell yes, it does.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it does.
So,
and now the finished product also gets it too. So
correct.
You're damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's just, so are our tariffs, which are raising prices for us astronomically and for no fucking reason, are they raising prices in Canada for the same materials?
Absolutely, they are. We are seeing significant impacts in multiple ways. So one is just prices are going up.
So if lumber that's milled and used in Canada, is it now more expensive because of what America is doing?
Yes, because what's happened is that lumber that is milled in Canada is no longer financially attractive to the US, and those customers dry up. Well, guess what? They're shutting down the mills. So they're producing less. And mills are extremely vulnerable because they're teetering on bankruptcy most of the time.
There's no profit margin.
There's no margin
in
that
products.
So when you start shutting down major markets and you can no longer produce at that same level, you can't just easily take a production mill and say, we're going to drop it down to 50% production levels. It just doesn't last long enough.
Well, not only that, but a lot of them physically can't run at that.
Correct.
People don't know this about lumber mills, but they kind of fuel themselves. If they're not producing enough scrap, they can't run the kilns that dry out the lumber for them to mill into more lumber. That's a real thing. And I don't know why people don't know that stuff. The price thing is also I told everybody, watch bacon. Bacon is a good indicator to see this because it's got a shelf life. You can't keep pigs alive any longer than until they're ready to go. So, when there's a tariff and pork, China buys a lot of our pork, right? And so they put the retaliatory tariffs on us. That makes our pork no longer attractive in their markets. Now we've got this glut of pork. We've got to get rid of it fast. You'll see the prices do this thing where they do this really far dip, but then it causes a major shortage, like in your case of shutting down a mill, or in this case, let's just not produce a bunch more pigs, and then it jacks it clean up. We've seen the dip. We're now in the rise on the bacon stuff, and I'm sure that the same thing. But I mean, you guys are talking about finished products that then go into a finished product.
Correct.
It's double on top of double on top of double. So here's my question. We have NAFTA. It was a signed treaty. There's the USMCA, also a signed treaty. How can a country unilaterally decide to not abide by a signed treaty? And what can the other signatories to that treaty do in to force them to behave their damn selves?
So we kind of joke a little bit about how polite Canadians are. So back in February, when the whole talk of tariffs started, it triggers a lot of fear in consumers. They're worried that they're not going to have a job. They're not therefore going out and buying big ticket items. They're not buying cars. They're not buying houses. So when those impacts last for a longer period of time, we're in this now for 4 months, and there's no end in sight. Like as of yesterday, 25% on steel now is 50%.
And you can't plan for it because it moves around wildly.
And there's a lag, right, as well, too. We might not feel some of these things immediately, but in 3 months, that it just hits us.
Exactly.
Well, we're starting to feel it now. So you take we do some back of the envelope analysis on this. You take a typical 800 home that would sell for 800,000. The impact of tariffs alone, partly because of the reduced consumer activity. No one's buying. No one was buying almost before that, but now it's even worse. Then you add on top of that all of these changes to input costs that we're looking at builders that are trying to find different supply chains because they can no longer access some of these products that they relied on from the US. That $800,000 home is already over $1 million now, and it's not any better, any different than it was when it was 800,000. So guess what? All it's doing is inflating these prices with no real value proposition that goes along with it. So we just have inflated homes that are trying to be sold. And if I remember right, there was something in the US about valuing homes higher than they really were and trying to put mortgages on them. And oh yeah, you had a whole mortgage collapse.
Yes, we did.
Subprime, baby.
Hey, worked out great for me because I bought on the rebound, and here I am loving my house. But
there you go.
I was told that Trump was going to get rid of inflation. It does not appear that is happening, and he's managing to cause inflation in countries that he's not even aware of are their own sovereign countries. Is the elbows up thing is real, right? Y'all are like super pissed off.
Yes.
So
yes, just look at the border traffic. Canadians going to the U.S. dropped by more than 50%.
Yeah, Florida's like all freaking out about this because that's like their primary vacation thing. But so like the question is, what can Canada do to exert any real pressure to get this to change? I mean, apart from elbow commercials and light tires and whatever, like what can you do to do something?
We've gone to the extreme at both ends. So one is when it was first being brought up, we did the retaliatory tariffs. So when you had the 25% on steel, we did 25% on steel. When you did the auto stuff, like it was just the back and forth. When Trump put the additional tariffs yesterday, coming into effect on Monday, on steel, going from 25% to 50%. Our position, or what our government officials have done, is interesting. We've got a liberal prime minister. We have a conservative premier in Ontario. And when we had that, I'm going to call it leadership vacuum in Ottawa, when Trudeau was still in power, but not really. And then they were going through the leadership thing. Doug Ford, as the head of all of the provinces, talking to the feds, ended up with the title of Captain Canada. He stepped in, filled that void. He was the one seen as providing leadership. So now what we've got is Carney coming in, liberal, Ford, conservative. They are, the best of buds right now in terms of tackling this. They're leveraging that common enemy syndrome. Common enemy being the president, your president, depending on how you want to view it. So we're taking a different tactic. We're saying right now, politically, we're not going to do retaliatory tariffs. We're going to continue to sit at the table and try and be the grown-up in the room and try to get something done. So they're trying this tactic because if they just jumped our tariffs up on the US as 50%, like it's just shooting each other in the foot. Like you already identified, this is having the same impact in your housing markets down there. People can't afford to buy homes in the US either. So they've got a federal leader who's actually hurting them financially.
Yes, we're very aware of that. Have you considered that adults in the room don't work on screaming toddlers?
Yeah. Yes, but it's still the Canadian way until it can be proven otherwise.
And then it's what, hockey stick time? Like, how do you?
It could be. It could be. You're going to see a whole bunch of Zambonis heading for the border, they're going to be armed with, slingshots. So watch out.
One of the things that we have talked about on this show a lot, and that I'm actually very concerned about, is the world rewiring the worldwide global economy to skip the United States. And it's conceivable to think about that in terms of East Asia, South America, Africa, Europe, all easily, and South Asia, easily sort of building a carve out around North America. But would it be really physically possible, economically possible for Canada to cut out, and work economically around the United States? Is that even doable?
Yeah. It's a really good question. They are our biggest. You guys are our biggest trading partner.
Right.
Like you just don't retool that overnight. Like who's going to be our new trading partner? Biggest trading partner? Denmark? Probably not. Mexico? Highly unlikely. It's the economies are so intertwined, let alone the people, right?
There
like when you, as you said, when you travel abroad, no one knows whether you're American or Canadian. Like you get asked. You can't really tell the difference. So we are so intertwined. You just don't easily decouple that. So when you say, can you work around it? in theory, sure, but how long would it take to get there? And if so, why would you need to? Part of the thing, the strategy I think that'll just start building here is how long do we have to wait him out?
Yeah.
Like, how long much will he be here?
Well, I think
globalism
he's
is
not
out
gonna
there.
leave, but
Like,
that's
right,
a whole different
globalism is
problem.
like the toothpaste that's out of the damn tube, right? We're not putting
Yep.
that away. Like, the
No.
global trade is just kind of how this works, right? And it's
Right.
I don't know what century he's trying to go back to, but that it doesn't. Well, there could be a few, but it doesn't work. This
Right.
is a global market, and
Yeah.
we have allowed goods to travel for the most part with free trade around the world, and it's got some shit with it, right? It hasn't been perfect, right? I'm pretty sure there's many towns in America that have been like would be like, what the
Yeah,
fuck are you
but
talking about?
overall, it's been beneficial for
Overall,
everyone.
yes,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And there could be things that could be tweaked, but this isn't the way to go about it. Like, it's
It's not.
insane.
It's not. But if I were to, there are two positive things I could actually point to that have come out of this.
Oh, I love this.
Certainly, none of it is financial. One is the whole focus on oil and pipelines, and Ford threatening to cut off electricity going to the U.S. and all of that type of stuff. That was back when we were doing the We Can Fight in the Big Kid Stable too. And when they looked at doing things like that, it brought a lot of Canadians because they're following the news. They learned some things. They learned we do not have a cross Canada oil pipeline. It goes down to the U.S. and it comes back up. So if we want to send oil from Alberta out east, we can't do it because we have to go through the U.S. So Canadians kind of woke up to this fact of, what do you mean we don't have a pipeline? Well, don't you think we should have one? So that was an interesting, educational debate going on here.
It's never occurred to either country that we would need to operate independent of each other.
Yeah,
That's why our electric grids are intertwined.
Yep.
That's why the infrastructures are intertwined. That's why all of your ports. Yeah, the oil thing's like a big deal, right? You'd think by looking at a map that the stuff from Alberta would go towards Vancouver and get on the tankers, but it doesn't, and it can't.
Does not.
It goes to New Orleans, and so I don't know what I'm asking here, but first of all, can you get us in? We may need some asylum.
I'm sure programs are being developed now.
I curl. I know how to do that, so I'm halfway there.
Maybe a spot in Saskatchewan for you then.
Yeah, that's true. They need help. Their team's not that good.
That's true.
I don't know how to do that Manitoba tuck thing, so I can't do that either.
Right.
But I do like the Newfies. So
they're a lot of fun.
Curl in the Maritimes. Yeah, that'll.
I'm headed actually to St. John's on Monday for a week for a work conference, so I'm looking forward to that.
Do you have to? Is there a rule that all the different provincial associations all have to get together and treat the Newfies worse? Is that part of the rules?
No, we just go out there and get screeched in. It's all a positive thing, right? You go out and watch some whales, you get screeched in, and you're having a good time.
Explain that to the Americans.
The screech rum. You got to go out there. You got to kiss the puffin, and then you got to drink some Newfie rum, and the day starts looking better.
There you go. Newfies are a lot of fun.
But the other thing that's come out of this from the Canadian side is because we're having all of these trade wars and tariffs issues with the U.S., it's actually shone a light on interprovincial trade where we do have a lot of barriers. So Ford is leading the charge on this as well to break down these barriers. So he signed deals with Manitoba. He's signed them with Alberta. He's signing one, I think, with Nova Scotia shortly. But he's breaking down these barriers because right now, if I go to BC and I buy some of their Okanagan wine, legally, I'm not allowed to bring it back to Ontario. It's stupid as hell that we can't do these types of things. So they're looking at breaking all of this stuff down.
But somehow we get around it pretty easily. Yeah. Wait a minute. So can you not get PEI oysters in Ontario?
Well, you can, but you're paying tariffs on them. There actually is a tariff upcharge when you bring some of this stuff across the border.
That's nuts.
It is nuts. It's absolutely nuts. Now, is it well policed? Of course not.
For tariffs against Florida for however long, I don't know. Can we do that? We should do like that. We could isolate Florida and cut it off like Bugs Bunny just let it float away. and just put a tariff at the Georgia line.
Remember,
Okay.
the Florida of today is the America of tomorrow. Sorry,
That's a dismal outlook.
It's very bad.
No!
It's very bad. It's very true, but it's very bad.
I vote against that.
While you can.
Yeah, right. So, okay, now, Scott, before, it is a school night, or at least here in America it is, we do want to, see how, if people want to learn about this, which I'm sure they do, even across the state lines, while we're still allowed to access Canadian websites.
Across the state lines? What do you mean?
You know what I
What
mean.
does that mean? I don't even like, with everything's going on, I don't even like the way that sounded.
Well, they're
Across the
about
border.
to.
I don't like that. I'm talking about the state lines.
Also, can I just a side note? If somehow Canada beats DC to 51st state, I'm gonna be fucking pissed.
That would be insane.
We have been fighting that fight for my entire life, and then they're gonna come in and just give it to Canada.
It's either is our basketball team ever going to win 50 games again, or are we going to become the 51st state? It's one of the two. I got bets on the.
Can we deport Drake? Like, pick him back. That's a deal. We'll take the tariffs off.
Well,
Everything's on the table, man.
Hey, I like it. So,
Yep.
here's what'll happen. Kendrick will put him in a truck and then hit the back of it, and off he goes. As soon as he crosses that line, we'll drive him through Detroit just for fun, right? So he crosses
That'd be good.
the
An experience.
The bridge into Windsor. What's it called? It's some sort of like Liberty Bridge, or it has a name,
It does. I can't think of it off.
I don't know, but it's some like grandiose name about the most trade in the world goes across this bridge. So we'll trade you back Drake. If you are willing to accept him, we will take the tariffs off.
Okay. Well, I will take that to Carney tomorrow and see what he says.
I assume you can call him, right? Yeah, you guys.
It's on speed dial, man.
Yeah. Okay.
The Ambassador Bridge is what we were looking.
The Ambassador Bridge.
There you go.
Yeah, I knew it was a thing. Shh, don't tell anybody I get that wrong. But okay, so how can people read about this? How do they, if they want to, get in on Ontario Home Builders Association or their other provincial associations? Where should they go?
Yep. If you want to look at some Ontario stuff, you can go to ohba.ca. If you want to look at it from a national perspective, my counterpart at the national level, the Canadian Home Builder Association, is chba.ca. Lots of stuff on there.
.ca is Canadian for .com.
That's right.
Wow.
And if we want to order shirts and stuff, do we have to pay in your weird pink money, or can we just pay in like real money?
Well, when you convert your US dollars, it's pretty much pennies on the dollar, right? So,
we
it's
got rid of
probably a
pennies
pretty good
now.
market.
We got
That's
rid
true.
of pennies, so we don't have that problem anymore. Yeah, you ever be like, take out some change in your pocket and you got one of those pennies with the lady on it, and you're like, ah, damn it, it's Canadian penny. And then you're like, what are we going to do with this? And then it's like, oh, yeah, nobody cares. And so then, do you guys
you collect them? Because we haven't had them for years.
Yeah, right. You guys have got rid of the penny a long time ago, right?
We don't even have $1 or $2 bills anymore.
No, you got loonies and toonies, though.
Loonies and toonies.
We flip them for who gets hammer in every game. And we freeze
good.
them into the ice for some reason. I think it's like a good luck thing. But
that's fantastic.
Yeah, so here we are in Washington, D.C. with loonies like frozen into our ice.
Oh, that just makes you an honorary Canadian at heart, right?
I guess so. We're like an outpost. So no tariffs on us then.
No, absolutely not. There'll be an economic zone around you. No problem.
I love it. Okay. Well, thank you, Scott, for joining us. Everybody,
that is very fascinating, actually.
To the what? Yeah, this has been yet another tremendous conversation where I feel a lot smarter.
Yes.
So thank you for all of that.
Absolutely.
We're going to take a break. Tez, do you want to try the hot read on the break? We're going to make Scott do the hot read.
Well, I don't know. We're not going to make Scott do that one. I can go ahead and do the hot read. I think this might. This is actually the one I've been practicing, so I should have this one.
Oh, okay. All right.
Actually, this is the one.
All right. We're gonna do the hot read, and we're gonna take a break. All right. So Tez, take it away.
Are you experiencing hot flashes, suddenly feeling fatigued and mentally cloudy? Well, it could be that you're falling in love, or it could be menopause. Either way, call the good folks at MenoStar and they can help cure what ails you. Have bone density issues? They have a workout plan just for you. Hormones out of control? MenoStar can prescribe you meds you need to get those damn hormones back in line. They also have punching bags. Check out menostart.com, and it's menno-start.com. The dash rhymes with hot flash. Sweet.
There you go.
Well
Love
done.
it. All right, we're going to take a break. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweet.
Menno Start.
Oh, man.
I'm sick of all these witches and warlocks. They're full of shit. Pumpkin possums, I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lies. Because you're lying. That's why. Oh, there's energy and oh, now we're done with Trump. You said he was the Messiah. You said he was invincible. I will not suffer your Q people after this. I knew what you were day one. I know what you are now. Witches and warlocks are full of shit. Pumpkin possums, I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lies. Because you're lying. That's why every goddamn thing out of your people's mouths doesn't come true. You said it was all over. You told us the stuff. You. Oh, God. Witches and warlocks, you're full of shit. Pumpkin possums, I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lies. Because you're lying. That's why witches and warlocks are full of shit. Pumpkin possums, I'm sick of it.
You keep interrupting me.
And all of it's lies. Because you're lying. That's why. Because every goddamn. I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that? Turn the friggin' frogs gay. Serious crap. Gay. Frogs, friggin' frogs. It's not funny. I'm gonna say it real slow for you. Gay. Frogs. Won't you fight for your life? Gay. Frogs, friggin' frogs. I don't like a frog. Gay. Friggin' frogs. Frogs. Friggin' frog crap. Won't you fight the frogs? It's not funny. I'm gonna say it real slow for you. Frogs. Place point.
All right, welcome back to Chip Chat here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I'm your host, Chip. With me is Tez.
What's popping, y'all? After any of those, I always have to do this. If you would like to donate some money to, again, help us curb some of the gun violence and protect America's children from gun violence, honoring the precious lives that were taken at Sandy Hook Elementary School, you can donate by going to sandyhookpromise.org and you'll click on the yellow donate button, which I have to clear my spirit every time we play those videos.
Gay frogs! So good.
Oh, God. Jesus.
Okay, speaking of great transitions.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
All right, we have to talk about several things that are kind of all happening at once, and they all sort of center around all of the thing. I don't know where the middle here is.
There's none.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a middle. I don't know. I haven't found it.
So there was an attack in Colorado over the weekend, I guess it was, just a few days ago. Yeah, it was the weekend.
Yep.
There was a group that's called Run for Their Lives. They're a national group all over the country, and they meet and march on a weekly basis or walk or do 5Ks or whatever to draw attention to the fact that there are hostages still in Gaza being held by Hamas, and this organization, not political, not partisan, just wants those people to get to go home. And there was an attack where somebody who seems to think that attacking them was going to end the war in Gaza ran up on them and threw Molotovs at everybody and injured 12 people, I think we're up to. Some of them were very old, and I think including one Holocaust survivor. So it wasn't good. It was yet another attack on a Jewish group. I don't want to call it necessarily anti-Semitic because we do need to like get into that nuance again and explain that. But so that's one thing that happened. Another thing that happened is this new, I guess they're calling it the Gaza Food Foundation or Humanitarian Foundation, Gaza Humanitarian, which is this U.S. group that is supposed to be responsible for distributing aid in Gaza. There has been no aid entering the Gaza Strip now for 3 months. The Israelis have completely blocked it off. It is a blockade, a complete and total blockade. This group is supposed to be distributing food in a way that can only really be described as weaponized, where they are armed food distribution, and then they are forcing the Palestinians to come to these specific sites to pick up their packets of food and leave. The sites are not really accessible. The people have to cross a war zone to get to them. The food is not being brought to the so-called humanitarian safe zones, which actually are humanitarian safe zones. The Israelis continue to absolutely bombard the Gaza Strip. They have destroyed nearly everything there. There's no functioning hospitals that can really treat any of the wounded. And so as these people are coming to get their meager packet of aid, the IDF is shooting them by the dozens and killing them on a daily basis. So after 3 days in a row where they shot into the crowd of people, ostensibly because they were afraid of getting run over by a bunch of destitutely hungry people or something, they paused operation and took a day off of handing out food to recalibrate their quadcopters gun mounts or something. They're shooting them with drones. Like, that's also to be clear. They're not just shooting them like standing there mowing them down with a Gatling gun. They've got quadcopters flying around everywhere in the Gaza Strip with guns. Imagine a drone with a gun that can just like fly up to you, shoot you in the head, and fly away.
That's modern warfare.
That is what's happening, okay? All of that is like, whoa. And then a story breaks this afternoon that the Israeli government is admitting to supplying arms and ammunition to rival Palestinian groups. They're calling them clans. I don't know why that's the word they want to use. Guys, we're Jewish. Out guns to the clans in Gaza with the intention that those guys are going to like fight Hamas. Because every time anybody's done that, it's always worked out.
Always. It's a great way to do it.
Like the Soviets in Afghanistan, or, you know, there's one example I can think of where this actually worked. And it's, you know, we've got the Contras in Nicaragua. We've got all the death squads in El Salvador. There's all the times Americans have funneled guns into all kinds of countries and stuff, tried to do that. Afghanistan, of course, is the big one. There was the Sunni awakening that happened in Iraq when the Americans started working with the tribal leaders in Iraq to fight off AQI and gave them a bunch of guns and helped them out to fight off AQI. And that worked pretty well until those groups became ISIS.
Right.
So, you know.
Well, some might say this has worked in Syria. I'm just joking.
No.
Just joking.
No. Nobody would say that. I'm sure Bashar al-Assad wouldn't say that.
He wouldn't say that.
So, like, this whole thing is very, very, very bad. And if I've said it once, I've said it a million times, that anytime we #the Jews are the middle of the conversation, it's bad. Bad time.
And weren't we off the week? We didn't even, I don't think we ever talked about the embassy shooting, did we?
We
Did we?
were on, but didn't want to talk
We
about
didn't
it.
talk about that. Okay, we didn't.
I didn't want to talk about that, but that happened just 2 weeks ago,
Right.
where two young Israeli embassy staffers were shot out front of the Capital Jewish Museum by a person who was chanting Free Palestine, who then gave himself up to be arrested.
Right.
We have a problem that I can't think of a safe way out of, which is that's itself a very big problem. The attack on the group that was, in Colorado, they are marching to bring home hostages from Gaza. That should not be a controversial position to hold. Jewish people aren't safe anywhere in the world, certainly not here in the United States. But Bibi has made us vastly less safe by running this war, by prosecuting this war, this genocide that's going on in Gaza. He's making us here less safe because people can't decouple us from them, and so now we're the target because of what Bibi is doing over there, and that's not fair. Part of the reason that people can't separate the Jews, from the Israeli government is because we historically have tried not to let them separate that, because we know that people don't want to be called anti-Semites. And so to give Israel cover to do a bunch of things, some of which were already, reprehensible and now have gotten much more reprehensible, we've countered any criticism of Israel with like, hey, you're being anti-Semitic, which that's not the way that should be described. Also, to be very clear, Jews cannot incite anti-Semitism. Nothing that we do can incite people to hate us. We shouldn't be doing certain things, but that doesn't give a credence to what they're doing. Brian is playing along with music in the background, which is definitely helping somehow. I don't know what he's watching Hawaii 5-0 or
I'm trying to focus on this very serious topic, but
it's very difficult. Brian's watching sitcoms from the 70s.
Yeah. I heard the horns that you used to have, the saxophone that used to be in every theme song,
Yeah.
Bring that back.
Yeah, I help you.
Yeah, we can hear your music in the background.
Oh, it's a smooth operator. I tried to be smooth, but it couldn't be. So
no, not that smooth.
Not that smooth.
All right, and then after this thing happened in Colorado, Trump used it as cover to enact his Muslim ban, and expanded it somehow, which included Togo of all places. So, totally not related. Sidebar: I texted Jack to be like, "Hey, Jack," because I know exactly one person from Togo.
Right.
Why in God's name is Togo on this list? And he's like, "Oh, well, we have a history of overstaying on student visas, and so that's why they're targeting us." And I was like, "Yeah, but you turned into a successful businessman and whiskey entrepreneur. Right. Shouldn't we encourage that?"
Sounds like it's good for the economy.
Yeah, it is good. He is very good for the economy and good for your Instagram. So go follow the Hood Sommelier on Instagram. But okay, not good. Very bad. I'm feeling kind of edgy.
It's going to continue to get worse, right?
Yeah, man. I don't know what to do, dude.
Bibi's not going anywhere, right? Because he needs to keep this war going on.
The war is the only thing keeping him from going
from jail, right? Yeah, so that doesn't end. You look at the polls. Obviously, they're if an election was had, he's losing. There's no
by
way
a landslide.
By a landslide,
and his government's only barely holding together because if he stops genociding, then the genocidal maniacs of the right wing will pull out and collapse the government.
Right, so immediately.
They've got him totally over a barrel, and by extension, all of the rest of the Jewish people outside of Israel are in peril because the whole world can see that the thing Israel is doing is not okay.
Yeah.
And they can't decouple that. It is a Jewish state. By its constitution, by its whole purpose of existence, it is the Jewish state. You would have thought it was Brooklyn, but it's not. And those things mean that people then in other places, whether it's the United States, whether it's France, whether it's in Germany, there have been, it is bad.
I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that...
Yes.
Hold on.
Like chemicals in the water.
I know that. Hold on, I don't want to lose my train of thought. But because that just almost scrambled everything. Again, please donate to yellow button sandyhookpromise.org. God, I'm gonna scramble my whole part. My point I was gonna make though is that right, it being a Jewish state, I think though, like back to what we said, like it might need to be a non-secular state, right? Maybe again, that's not my figure to figure out, but it feels like that might be the way things need to move.
That
right?
would have to be a major shift. I mean, the Constitution would have to be changed. And, you know, it's been long said that Israel can't be a Jewish state and a democracy because, you know, to have like a class level of citizenship, you know, is non-democratic. That's a fair criticism. I mean, look,
because there are more than Jewish people that live there.
Yeah, see, that's the thing is that, like, the Jewish people who live in Israel are not universally okay with the thing that is being done in their name.
Right.
And the Jewish people outside of Israel are overwhelmingly not okay with what's being done in our name. And we are less safe. You know, over there, right? If you're living in Tel Aviv or Haifa or any of the other, you know, big cities, Tiberias, whatever, like you're safe, right? It's a militarized police state.
Right. Yeah.
Everybody there is in the army. There is a heavy security presence. There's a heavy intelligence presence. There's the Iron Dome, for God's sakes. Nothing's going to befall you there in Israel. Those cousins are safe. But if you're in the United States and Jewish, you don't have an IDF protecting you from Klansmen or now newly empowered anti-Israel. I don't know what to call them. You know, it's because, like, it is perfectly acceptable to be humanitarian in terms of Gaza, or even to be pro-Palestinian existence, or you know, pro-peace, or any of those things. And I myself want the war to end. You know, I'm Jewish and I call it a genocide. I'm Jewish and I think that what's happening there are
and I'm sure in your community you get attacked for that.
You know, in the beginning it was divisive. It was divisive because it was one of those things where, like, we all are raised, you know, our grandparents were the ones who built that country, and we're all thinking, like, you know, we might not like what's going on, but we can't say anything bad about it because that's how the bad guys win.
I equate it to before, like, there weren't that many black quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah.
And it's like, yo, man, like, Charlie Batch is good.
No.
He's not. But I can't say that. I can't say, but I couldn't say that. But now you can be critical of it because there's an abundance of them, right? But that's how I think about this.
Yeah, it's like that, except life and death.
Yes,
but sure.
Exactly. Yes.
Speaking of which, Aaron is working out at the Steelers. I guarantee they cut him in camp. He doesn't start for Pittsburgh. I promise you.
That's interesting.
But anyway, like, yeah. So in the beginning of the war, it was a touchy issue. It was divided. It's kind of hard to find Jewish people now who are like, yeah, we need to keep up whatever it is that's going on over there. About the most kind of like violent position you'll find amongst American Jews, or at least the ones that I found, is Israel's got a right to defend itself. They've probably done enough defending. They should retreat to the borders and, you know, let the world fix Gaza at this point. That's about the hardest line.
They've chosen to occupy it, right?
But they've chosen to occupy it. Trump's out here saying that he wants to take it over and turn it into a resort. Netanyahu's spokesperson was on the radio this morning or yesterday morning saying that they were going to follow the Trump plan and do that, which I don't know what that even means or how that would even happen.
It's a concept of a plan.
You know, and those guys are saying these crazy things like, well, the people of Gaza want to leave, but Egypt isn't letting them. I'm like, you've herded them into death holes and then bombed them. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?
I think sometimes around the globe, or not I say about the globe, I think specifically for me, I think about is that where is the empathy for people wanting to be in their homeland, right? You would think that
a group of people who want to be in their homeland, who fought for a homeland and have lived there since 1948, would understand why other people would want to be in their homeland.
Yeah, because if it's flipped the other way and someone's asking that, I would be like, oh, that's an anti-Semitic viewpoint. But these people have lived, those families, these Palestinians have been there hundreds of years, like
thousands.
I mean, yes, thousands of years. Yeah.
When you hear the story of David and Goliath,
right.
David is the Jewish shepherd who defeats the mighty Philistine Goliath. Do you know what the word Philistine? You know what that translates to in modern? Is Palestine. The Philistines are the Palestinians, and they lived in the strip of land that is now called the Gaza Strip. That is where they are from. And that war, or that battle that gave Israel the flag that it flies, right? The Star of David, Magen David, the Shield of David, that right there, that's how long this goes back.
Right.
This is insane that these two groups of people who have always lived next to each other,
right,
now one of them has an disproportionate, doesn't even begin to describe it, level of capacity, and is beyond. It was bad when they were oppressing and limiting like water and electricity into Gaza. That itself was a humanitarian crisis. What they're doing now is extermination.
It's an erasure of people.
It's an attempt at it. Yeah. And having been the victims of an attempt at extermination, to then turn around and perpetrate that on somebody else is beyond icky. There's not a word to describe the feeling here. And every time I look at the headlines, I want to cry and puke at the same time. I don't know what to do about this, but I'm terrified. I think that somebody's going to come after us here in the States. I think that our support amongst the liberal establishment here in America is going to fall apart, and without their protection, then the right wing and the Nazis and the Klan and all of those guys who have always wanted to kill us will get their opportunity to do so.
I think because at least in my time on this planet and following this since a child, this is the first time that I found that a decent amount, I could probably lean to, at this point, a majority of American Jews, again, to your point, have spoke out about this, who have like this. It's the first time I've seen where it doesn't start with like, we talking about Israel and we always like, because there was never like in the past, I've tried to have these conversations with like friends of mine or people like you end up having these political conversations out loud with, and it always was like, well, there was never a point where you could even interject, because it was like, well, no, I'm not criticizing the state of Israel. And I think that has changed. Obviously what has not changed, and this would be the history books, no matter what, is that the Jewish people of the world are always going to end up the scapegoats. Any history I've ever read is all it's always happens, right? It's happened from multiple millennia at this point. And that's always going to be it. And what I've also noticed is it becomes very contagious in the sense, in that contagion, when that snowball rolls, it gets out of control. I think the World War II is clearly one of those examples of like when a nation decides to enforce this. And
the Crusades
is another one, and folks will be easy, like
the Inquisition.
They'll always like, it's easier to have this conversation around Jewish folks, right? Where there's I could go down the list of genocidal things that are happening around the world, but this one this will always get the most traction. And I think the reason around this, I don't know, but I think the reason this always gains the most traction now, specifically with the creation of the state of Israel and who its primary backers were, is that the empires that back it, right? Yeah. Whether it's the British, whether it's America.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think that's where because then it becomes more of like it's almost like people remove like the Jewish people from it. It's more of like this American imperialism at this point that is spread. And it's like that, but I don't necessarily know why that can't be separated from the Jewish people themselves.
It's this tokenism stuff, right?
Yeah.
You've got all these people who aren't Jewish who fetishize us like we're some sort of leprechaun or secret thing. And
the evangelicals.
Yeah, the evangelicals, it's like, and like a good way to explain this is when you see people who aren't Jewish and have no background in it, like picking up Hebrew text and claiming to be able to decipher it. And they go, we see here in the Hebrew, it says this, this, and this. And then somebody who does speak Hebrew goes, no, it doesn't say it. Like, this isn't a dead language. We all speak it. We all can read it. We know what it says. We can translate it for you. It doesn't say that. You are just pretending that people can't understand it and putting words in our mouths. We didn't say that. That has always been the thing in my life that has been like one of the most bizarre, weird things. But like the insecurity of it all, feels different because, when I was younger and I would think about like, okay, if shit hits the fan here in America and there's, I don't know, Nazis carrying torches running around, I can flee to Israel and I will be safe. I can get there and I can claim citizenship and I can go stay with my cousins, of which I have several hundred at this point, and I can be safe. I don't think that anymore. And I don't think I can go there and be safe. As a matter of fact, I don't want to have anything to do with the place.
Which is crazy, right? To say that? Yeah. That's insane to say.
You know where I feel safe? Nowhere. Because,
right.
Another thing is that, like, growing up, where I personally felt safest was in, just to be clear about it, non-white spaces.
Right?
When I'm in white spaces, I feel a little like you never know who those people are.
Yeah, because it while folks will say that Jewish Americans, not all of them, but like able to similar to Italians and Irish to similar to the white
with whiteness,
right? But like that shit can change really quick.
They can take it away in an instant.
Yeah,
and
that can flip.
Right. So I mostly identify with people who are not in the majority of, the society. And so I mostly feel safer in black and brown spaces.
Right.
And I don't feel that now, not because I think that those people are, dangerous to me, but because of the things that Netanyahu is doing have clearly to anybody who's watching, to those watching, they can see that this thing that is happening is not an acceptable thing to be doing. And so like any right-thinking person is going to look at that and go, oh no, I don't want any, those people are crazy, meaning me. And I'm like, so either I have to be with the white people who are carrying torches talking about Jews will not replace us, or I got to be with the brown folks and constantly explaining, okay, they're Israeli, I'm just Jewish. There's a difference.
Right.
So where am I supposed to go?
I mean, that's been the question for a long time. And the place that was created for that, can't go there.
Is now the problem.
It is the problem, yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't know how you get there, but a two-state solution is that has to be it, right? I don't know how
Well, it
you get
does
there.
have to be it, but how do you get there?
I don't know
without
how you get there.
2 generations of crazy people dying to get the hell out of the way.
I mean, there has to be an enforcement of it and a protection, right? And where does that come from? I mean, then you got to look at who is it the UN? Is it the
UN and what army?
Like, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean,
who's going to fight the IDF if they don't accept the mandate from the outside?
But hopefully I guess the idea should be, if there's a reasonable government in Israel that can get to this point, that there shouldn't be fighting, that honestly there should be open trade and ways to make sure that both societies and both states can benefit from each other. And I mean, it has to be monetary, but that's where it eventually has to move. And it could be 400 fucking years from now, and we might still not be there. But it's clear.
I don't see the horizon.
It's
clear. I don't see it.
Me either.
That's hopeless. That is a real
thing. Shitty fucking situation. Because again, like, there's a set of people who are being eradicated from the earth, and it's happening by a set of folks who were almost eradicated.
Grandparents
were eradicated from the earth. Yep. And it's a total mindfuck to try to even comprehend. And I think because emotions run so high, right? And there's just a higher level of ignorance around, like, the whole, like, Israeli or Jewish and, like, the
but amongst the Israeli government, those guys, they don't have any ignorance there. No, they absolutely know better. They're doing it anyway.
This is true. Yeah.
So
Jesus,
it's not good. All right, we're gonna do a live read, then we'll go to the TES talk.
Okay.
So we can do this. I'll give this one a go.
There you go.
Ladies, are you all of a sudden feeling sad, depressed, sluggish, and no hope for the future? Then you should have voted for Harris. Also, go talk to Dr. Cawthorn at meno-start.com and see if maybe your hormones are out of balance or your ovaries are shutting down as you age gracefully into your get off my lawn years. Dr. Cawthorn and Coach can help you not only feel better, but get healthy enough to back up that get off my lawn with or I'll whoop your narrow behind. Click meno-start.com today. The dash is for hot flash.
Good job.
There you go.
There it is. Look at that. Look at our live reads. We'll probably get more after this.
Yeah, I think so. We're very popular.
We're very popular. Many people are saying.
Many people are saying.
Many people are saying.
All right. You want to talk about how okra can save the world?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Yeah, it's another TES talk, and we're talking climate again.
Look at those dead ass birds.
There they go. All right, someone had to say it. There it is. No, this is I love, first of all, that this comes from the website www.com, plasticstoday.com.
That's the trade publication. I did see some news articles about this, but I went to the source.
This is the source here. Yeah. There's I'll just read from the article here, right? I'm not too fussy when it comes to food, but I do draw the line at okra. It's just too slimy, the most common reaction of okra rejectors. Now, however, I have another reason to reject it. I'm selfishly sacrificing my portion of okra in solidarity with the efforts to remove microplastics from wastewater. So there's a new research study that is showing the odd-looking green sea pod can be used to remove microplastics from the water. Because, like, there's microplastics all in the water. I think it's even in the rain.
It's in the rain.
It's in the rain, right? The entire pod isn't used. It's just some. And what is it? Is it
polysaccharids?
Polysaccharides. All right, I thought so. The polysaccharides are what gives okra the slime factor. So this cuts to the heart of the issue. The same goo that people find so appetizing when you kind of eat it can now be put to good use. The polysaccharides can easily be extracted from the okra, and just a slice and soak in water overnight, and then they use to kind of help get these microplastics to settle at the bottom of these storage tanks in these tests here. And then the microplastics stick to the polysaccharides, and then the polysaccharides stick to each other and the water, and and the water is somewhat expelled, building up enough dense mass for gravity to kind of take over. And again, at the bottom, right, you got clean water floating above a layer of like the slime microplastics. So, like, again, interesting way science has jumped into this. This type of operation was a very common process for water and wastewater treatment, right? So this is already kind of happening. Was it how do you was it? Is it follow? One more time. Flocculation. Okay.
Yeah.
Flocculation usually in water soluble synthetic polymers and various types. But these bio-based ones. Is it such you? There's a very lot of scientific words in it. Is it? I'm gonna go with chitosan.
Yeah, I think so.
Chitosan do exist. For anybody, our scientists out there who are well versed in this, please come send these dictionary responses to me so I can understand what I'm talking about here. But needless to say, we'll dumb this down a little bit, right? The okra was tested. Right, it's tested naturally occurring water samples from the ocean. They did wells, they did rivers, and scientists found that just 60 minutes of more than 80% of the microplastics in ocean water could be removed. For the well and river waters, the results were about 85 and 68% respectively. And that, I mean, that's huge, right? So, right, and researchers also studied another foodstuff, found a similar result, but that foodstuff, fenugreek, induces entirely different reaction for me. When you say fenugreek, I think curry, and I don't care if I just ate and I'm hungry. You can take my okra, but you'll have to pry my jar of fenugreek out my cold, dead hands.
It's a spice that's very commonly used in curries, and it is very delicious.
Very delicious.
And smells great. Yeah, the idea here is that
the slime is gonna
coagulates the microplastics into something that's heavy enough that it sinks and separates out from the water, and then you can pump the water out of the tank and scrape up the slime full of plastic and dispose of it, and then you just extracted all of that out of it. And the thing is that these microplastics are so small that the filters can't get them.
Right.
So you have to get them to sort of precipitate out of the water, but they're so light they don't fall out of the water. So you've got to get them to clump together until they're heavy enough to do it. And this is kind of the flocculation is the combining of the stuff to make it sink. That's also how wastewater in general is treated, right? You got wastewater, it's got a bunch of suspended solids in it. They put it in the tanks. The solids eventually sink and separate out, right? They sink to the bottom of the tank. You pump the water off the top. You got the solids, you scrape them out. You got a new tank, you're ready to go. But the problem is that the plastics don't do that. So now by using okra slime, which is safe, not harmful to people because okra is delicious. I don't know who wrote this article that he doesn't want to eat okra, by the way. Yeah. That's weird. I like okra. It's delicious. Fried okra is great.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Oh yeah. So you can do that, and then you haven't really introduced any contaminants to the water. You just decontaminated some of the water, and you can then send it back into the river without all the plastic that you
I think what's becoming clear with a lot of these stories is that it's going to be natural substances for the most part that are probably going to be what eventually, I don't know if it saves us, but limits the effects of a lot of these issues that
are. As long as there's still scientific research going out and looking for them and doing these kind of tests, because this is the kind of
it's clear that Earth already has the answers to this.
That's right.
This issue we've created, which is just kind of Ken, this is I know there's a lot of shit with, but this planet is a very beautiful thing. What it is, whatever you believe in, how you think it started, cool, whatever. I don't want to get into that. But the actual planet itself is a insane organism that it's going to fix itself. The problem is it going to fix us? And when I say fix us, kill us,
save us, or not
get
rid of us to save itself.
Save itself. Right. I think the latter might be more, but
it's a very distinct possibility. There's volcano exploded in Sicily this week while a bunch of people were up there hiking on it. It's not harmful. Apparently, everybody just ran down the mountain and they were okay. But it's a little concerning. Kilauea's exploding, 1,000-foot jets of molten rock shooting up into the sky. That's crazy.
Maybe the clouds will limit the amount of UV rays. Like, who knows? Like, it's clear that the planet knows what it needs to do to figure out. Like, it's taken a couple gut punches, but it's obviously fighting back.
It is definitely doing that, and it's a little concerning that we might be the plague that it's got to get rid of.
Right.
But in case Earth is listening, not us. We're the good ones.
Yeah.
We're hashtag one of the good ones.
One of the good ones.
Yeah, Tess has been called one of the good ones several times.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
They love it. Favorite thing.
Not like you. You're one of the good ones.
Oh, God, Jesus.
I feel so good when you hear that, right?
Yeah, shit.
All right, you want to do this live read here?
Oh, sure. Yes, I'll try this one here. I have not read this one, so we'll see. It's a very short one, but who cares? I could still butcher it. And now it's time for the menostart.com dash to the thermostat. And yet another hot flashes causes... Oh, let's start this again. And now it's time for the menostart.com dash to the thermostat, as yet another hot flash causes us to take a break and contact menostart.com for all our menopausal needs. menostart.com, that's meno-start.com. The dash is for hot flash.
There you go. We're getting better at this.
Yeah, look, it's going to take a second.
All right, now we've come to the part of the show. It's called the Rundown. This is where I tell you about some stuff that's gone on in the news. If we were professionals, it would sound a little something like this.
From Beltway Radio and beyond in Washington, D.C., I'm Emmy-nominated TV newsman and just bona fide sexual beast, J. Scott Smith. And this is the part of the show where I tell some stuff about, well, maybe not me, but somebody else is going to tell some stuff about what's happening in the news. So what's going on in the news, fellas?
Thanks, Jay. All right, big story that we didn't even really get to talk about. We could have barely touched it last week because it just happened. But the Ukrainians, punching well above their weight, ran an operation that they called Operation Spiderweb, where out of nowhere, a bunch of Russian bombers deep inside of Russia at their air bases, like all the way in Irkutsk and Siberia, exploded. And they all freaked out. And they're like, what the hell happened? Here's what the hell happened. 18 months ago, a year and a half ago, the Ukrainians started planning this mission where they snuck drones into the tops of wooden cabins like that people use for ice fishing, and the tops of like flatbed truck, like just trucks, semi trucks.
Right.
Snuck them into the roofs of those things, and then put those into Russia, probably over some regular old, transport. They put them on a ship, sent them around to wherever. Then they got unloaded from the ship, and they slapped the destination on them. And the trucking companies, they pick them up, they drive them, they go, and they just drop them off where they're supposed to be at. Okay. 18 months later, the roofs of these things all pop open at once. Drones, not just drones, first-person view drones that are being flown by a human being looking through the camera of them, which takes a lot of data, right? Because you have to have a very fast data connection and a good data connection to where the drone is reacting to your controls in real time. Lift up out of there, and that's not at all. Also, follow-up drones, like that are going to film these drones doing their drone shit, fly up with them. They take off, and they go flying towards these unguarded bomber bases deep inside of Russia, where these strategic bombers that are like their big ass, they're like their B-52s. They call them, we call them Tu-95s. They're propeller driven, but they're giant ass bombers, and they're super loud, by the way. They have been the strategic bomber of the Soviets since the Cold War, just like our B-52s have been around since the 50s. And they're like just sitting there out on the tarmac waiting for their next mission to refuel and like get up in the air and launch cruise missiles at Ukraine, which is what they've been doing. These drones pop up out of their trucks, fly to where those bombers are, and bomb them. Boom. And the follow-up drones filmed them doing it and then sent all the footage back. The Ruskies were like, what the fuck is going on? Some of them filmed it, and then like the footage of them filming it got out. Putin found out about it, had the guys who filmed it get killed, for like the truth, I guess. I don't know. Like, this freaked out everybody, as it should. Number one, good on the Ukrainians for being able to do this. Number two, good thing they're on our side, because I guarantee you all of our bombers are also sitting at their bases in like Nebraska or whatever, thinking that they're safe. And now we know they're not. So that's a little concerning. Hooray. But what a mission. And so, like, if you think about that moment in the Oval Office where Trump is dressing down Zelensky and saying that he doesn't hold any cards and he doesn't know what he's doing and he doesn't know how to fight this war. At that time, Zelensky knew this operation was happening. He planned it. He ran the whole thing. And he had to like pretend that he, didn't know shit about it or whatever. So like that was cool. The Russians got all freaked out. They of course claim that nothing happened there and everything's totally fine. But they're military bloggers who is like where we find out about the reaction in Russia to these things. They're all like jumping up and down talking about we got to nuke the Ukrainians for doing this stuff and this is our Pearl Harbor. Everything to them is in World War II terms, by the way, because that's like the last time they were good at anything. So that's how they talk about stuff. So like
we didn't attack Japan first. All right. I mean, after a while we started putting the people in America in camps, but we didn't attack them first. That's not
right. So it isn't their Pearl Harbor because it isn't bringing Russia into the war. They started the war. They're already in the war. It's been going on for years. Whereas when Japan attacked us, we were not in the war yet officially. And it did bring us into the war. And then, the internment camps that we're really sad about. But we ended up nuking them for that because they touched our boats. And there's a thing about don't touch the boats. America doesn't like it when you touch our boats. So, which Pete Hegseth doesn't know about. We're going to remind him in a minute.
This is also very interesting because it shows that people, when like in this case the Ukrainians, they're not going to give up. I thought it was interesting a couple of weeks ago where America, as well as some like the rest of the European countries, lifted the ban of like where like any of the military arms that we've given, those can now strike deeper into it. But it's almost like the Ukrainians are like, all right, if you didn't do that, we're gonna figure some shit out. I think the one interesting fear I end up having is at the end of this, right? And eventually, like, right, Zelensky won't be president forever. That'd be kind of crazy. Who knows? Things go crazier than that, but he won't be president forever. But if you end up having someone else that goes into Ukraine and maybe is more autocratic, like, or that's something I'm very interested in. I mean, you hope that doesn't happen because you bring them into the EU and
but Orban's in the EU.
That's true.
If he had these drones, good goddamn well what he would do with them.
Exactly, and that's where I kind of wonder, like, right, like because Europe is obviously it's always susceptible to like these especially the countries that like become democracies, right, and things that like it can end up shifting, right, after the war is done, after there's not that common enemy anymore. Does the new enemies end up being immigrants or whatever? And I think that's something we're so far from that, but I do wonder a lot about that. It's like, what does the Ukraine of 20 years from now look like?
Well, not just Ukraine, right? This is the thing where they built this with off-the-shelf technology. They did it with their own innovation. Right. They did this entirely on their own because, as you mentioned, they're not getting the support that they need. They're outmanned, outgunned, and they've got no other option but to rely on their own, what we used to call Yankee ingenuity, and they figured a solution out. But it also shows how democratized warfare is.
Yeah.
And so you could have a non-state actor that builds similar drones, gets them into places, within range, causes a lot of havoc. This is the first major war that has been fought by drone versus drone.
Right.
You know, sure, the Americans use plenty of drones in Iraq and Afghanistan, but that's different because they weren't like close proximity, small, you know, just a few $1,000s drones.
Right.
They were, you know, basically airplanes that you could fly from a distance. This is a very big difference.
This is like buying off the shelf type shit that you could actually use and then configure the way you want.
Exactly. And if you think about what a fighter aircraft or strike aircraft that could have delivered this same thing costs,
Right.
just to buy, just not to operate, not to train, not to do any of that, just to buy, those aircraft cost $50 million on a minimum.
Right.
So comparatively, you can buy an entire war's worth of drones for the price of one fighter aircraft. And that tells you that this is a shift. This is a big thing. Then like 2 days later, at the Kerch Bridge that goes from Russia into Crimea, there was another explosion. The Ukrainians detonated a bunch of TNT, like 1,000 kilograms worth of it, which I don't know how much that is in real pounds, but like at the base of one of the supports of the bridge and damaged the bridge. And it got closed for a few hours. It's still not back at full capacity. This is the third time that I can recall that they've been able to hit this bridge. Like, these guys are punching well above their weight. It is time that the rest of the world stops fucking around, gives them exactly what they need to end this shit, and calls Putin what he is, which is a war criminal and a butcher. And just, if we're not going to be the ones to fight him, which I don't want to be the ones to fight him, let the Ukis have what they need to get the job done, man, and just finish this shit off. Meanwhile, Trump's saying, oh, well, you know, I know Putin, but I'm very disappointed in him for what he did and attacking these cities and stuff. Then when the Ukrainians do all this, he doesn't come out and say, well, you know, maybe the Russians ought to listen. He goes, well, you know, we don't know about that. I don't know about that. The Russians will figure it out.
But even to that point, that's been the public face of this here. But there are reports out of Axios this evening on there that behind closed doors, he's been saying that it's been a badass attack. Like, and he like it because again, if you're just looking at this like objectively, right? It's like, oh shit,
it's a badass attack.
It is. I am worried about, because when I started reading this story, I was talking to someone about it last week who's unaware that it happened, and I was like, it worries me because it's such a large scale attack and what it was able to accomplish. Like, I mean, forget fighting Ukraine. Russia right now is like, if something were to pop off with, let's just say them and China got into it, right? Or them and us, they're at a weaker stance now than even they were like a few days ago, right?
Yeah.
And not even the actual bodies that they would need, or people, conscripts that they would need to actually do stuff. But
their
now they're like,
capacity is drastically.
Some of those things could drop nuclear bombs, and they don't have the ability to do that anymore.
Right. So
not to say they can't do it.
Successfully destroyed something like a third of the Russian nuclear capable fleet. And that's a big deal because a lot of those planes are really old and they can keep them flying, but they can't build new ones.
Right.
So it's, you know, the Tupolev factory is not churning out new Tu-95s. Just like Boeing isn't building new B-52s. They're just keeping the B-52s that we have alive. So that, you know, if you think of the nuclear triad between the ICBMs, the submarines, and the bomber fleet, that's knocked out a big chunk of one of the legs of the triad. So, yeah, you know, if you had designs on striking Russia, like, you might get away with it now.
Yeah.
So don't do that.
Please.
No nuclear war.
No.
But just saying. Speaking of things going nuclear, over at NPR, everybody's freaking out. We need to sell many, many more tote bags because Trump told Congress that he wanted them to claw back $1.1 billion that goes to public broadcasting. Mostly goes through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. There is a mechanism where Congress can basically disappropriate money and claw it back. They have 45 days from the time that Trump issued the proclamation. They have to pass it by a majority. They don't seem to be able to get a majority of anybody together to do anything. So I think it's probably not super likely that this happens, but weirder things have happened. So
Right.
just full alarm, call your congressman, senator, and let them know that you want PBS to exist. And, it's not just Sesame Street. If you are in rural America, public broadcasting is probably your primary source for news and information. It's your weather. It's your early warning.
I don't know. Does the smartphone change that?
Yeah, the smartphones don't work out there. They don't have enough data. No, I know normally I'm making fun of these guys for being, poor and rural and not having electricity or whatever. But the truth is that high-speed broadband and cellular networks are spotty in a lot of the country. And the primary source of safety radio, like to know if the tornado is coming over the radio. And that radio station is overwhelmingly supported by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting in these places. So if you want to not get killed by the tornado, you need public broadcasting. And if you think that it's just a bunch of liberal squishy Elmos, it is not. It is also like the farm forecast for that week, or like, what's happening at your local high school, or any of those things. So you need this. If you're listening out there, you're hearing my voice, it is probably because of the technology that is put in place by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. You need this thing. Take it away, you're going to die. That's what's going to happen. I can't put it more clearly. Joni Ernst told me that's how that works.
I was going to say.
All right, this one's called Gay News. So here in DC,
it is happy news.
It is happy news. It's very gay. Here in DC, we have a place called DuPont Circle.
Yes.
And it is the center of gay DC.
Yeah.
It's where the first neighborhoods where people were sort of safe to be out and about. It's where a lot of the gay bars have expanded, right? There's more gay DC than there used to be, but it used to be centered around DuPont Circle.
Yeah.
Logan Circle now, which is the next one over, also pretty gay. But so Pride, World Pride. I'm not talking about regular, like we have Pride festivals in DC every June. It's like a big thing. Everybody gets dressed up. There's parades. There's specials at the bars. Everybody wears rainbows. The Nats play in rainbow gear. It's cool.
They played today. So it was
everybody likes it. It's like a big fun thing for everybody. But World Pride, which is like the worldwide version of this, featuring J-Lo, is going to be here in the district. And so they were like, oh yeah, well, we're going to do what we always do, which is have a party in DuPont Circle. And then, oh no. Everybody was told that the Park Service had closed DuPont Circle because in the district, you have to remember that a lot of things don't belong to the district. DuPont Circle is one of them, belongs to the Department of Interior.
Right.
They're like, oh, we're closing DuPont Circle because the DC police and the mayor requested us to because they fear violence and vandalism. And then DC Metro PD was Pam Smith was like, we didn't say that. We didn't ask you to close that at all. Like we're ready. We were expecting to staff that. And she used to be Park Police. So she's like, I don't know who you're talking to. And the mayor's office is like, no, we definitely didn't do that. Your buddy Zach Parker was like, no. And we're going to do the festival there. And so then like after a few hours, like literally a few hours, it turns out maybe they're not going to close it. But there's no confirmation on that. We don't know one way or the other.
That's a good point. There's no confirmation on that.
Nobody could confirm, at least at the time that we're going to air, whether DuPont Circle is closed or not for the festivities that are planned, I think, Saturday?
I think so.
Yeah. Now, the thing that could derail it is thunderstorms, but you can be gay in the rain. I hear it works out fine. So, yeah. Speaking of gay, you know who Harvey Milk was?
Isn't he a famous? I don't know what his claim to fame is, but I know he's not famous.
I do.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Brian knows. Who was Harvey Milk?
He was a former San Francisco, I would like to say councilman, but there's a specific
He was
title
mayor,
for
I
it.
think.
No, he was not a mayor. He was,
Oh, no.
he was a
He was,
councilman.
city council, essentially.
Yeah. So who unfortunately got murdered by his own colleague.
Oh, yes, I do.
Yeah.
I know exactly this story.
So
Wasn't he was murdered? I don't want to say he was murdered in like the town hall or something.
Yeah, in City Hall.
It was, right?
Well, in his office.
In the office, right? Yeah, I do know this story.
He's also a veteran
Veteran
of the Navy who was dishonorably discharged from the Navy for being gay. He was an officer. I mean, he was not just like some regular sailor. He was I think a lieutenant, and so he lost his career, and then he went into public service, or continued in public service, I should say, and was an
lost his
elected
life.
official. Lost his life as a result. Pelosi worked for him, and then won his seat when she got into electoral politics. So that's who he is. Okay. The Navy is you've heard of the Navy. They have ships.
Great color.
Yeah, it's a great color. They have ships. They play lacrosse in Annapolis, and they also have ships that help the other ships. And so if you're like on an aircraft carrier or a battleship or something like that, we don't have battleships anymore, but like destroyers or whatever, those things need fuel. And the things that bring them the fuel, the tenders, they used to be called, they're called oilers. And they're basically slightly armored up oil tankers. And they can sail along with the ship while it's underway and refuel it. And they also carry like dry stores, food and all the things that you need on a ship. So basically they can catch up to a task force, right? Join the task force, supply, resupply, take things on, take things off. They've got helicopter decks usually on these oilers where they can vertical resupply is what they call it, where they drop things onto the deck of the aircraft carrier or whatever. And, they exchange a bunch of stuff, and then the oiler, takes off, and the ships can continue underway. No problem. There's a new class of these oilers, and it is called the John Lewis class of oilers. And they are named after people like Thurgood Marshall and Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Harriet Tubman and Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez and Lucy Stone and Medgar Evers and all of these civil rights icons. So in the beginning of Pride Month, which is when we celebrate gay pride, right? LGBTQ and all of the other letters in the alphabet, Pete Hegseth announced, the Navy announced, that they were going to rename the Harvey Milk because they don't want there to be they said it was divisive. Here's this quote that is probably the least or the most nonsensical thing I've ever read. Secretary Hegseth is committed to ensuring that the names attached to all DoD installations and assets are reflective of the Commander-in-Chief's priorities, our nation's history, and the warrior ethos. How does having a oiler named after Harvey Milk affect anything?
And wouldn't he be considered the warrior's ethos?
He was a Navy sailor. I mean,
yeah.
Unlike the one that's the commander-in-chief, because he dodged that thing.
That's right. Yeah, Mr. Bone Spurs. Maybe they'll rename it the Bone Spur. That'd be funny. One of the things also that I don't know how many people know this, but there is this like crazy superstition about changing the name of a ship, that you shouldn't do that. You should never change the name. Once it's christened, it's called christened.
Right.
That name, that is the ship's name. And if you change it, you could invite all kinds of disaster. So here we have Pete Hegseth literally fucking with America's boats. And the last time anybody did that, went bad for him. Don't fuck with our boats. Harvey
Foreign or
Milk.
domestic.
Yeah. All right. This one's called Trumpistas Eating Their Own. Now, initially, this story was about how Stephen Miller is all pissed off and punched Elon in the face because Elon stole his wife. Essentially, Stephen Miller's wife left the White House to go. That's not in this part of the story.
No.
Stephen Miller's wife left her job in the White House to go work directly for Elon, and then Elon showed up with a black eye on his right eye, and Stephen Miller's a lefty. So you put that together. Elon said that he told his son to punch him in the face, which sounds totally likely.
Of course.
Or whatever.
Weird Africana tradition.
Right. Yes, naturally. It's part of their heritage, not hate.
Yeah.
So, but here's what happened. Stephen Miller called all of the regional heads of ICE to Washington and then dressed them down for not arresting enough people and deporting them. And he's like, you guys aren't catching enough brown people. Quote, they've been threatened, told they're watching their emails and texts and signals. I bet they're watching their signals.
Of course. So is Jeffrey Goldberg.
They're worried they're all going to get fired. There's no morale. Well, good. I'm sure. I was like, I don't want ICE to have morale. Miller came in there and eviscerated everyone. You guys aren't doing a good job. You're horrible leaders. He just ripped into everybody. He had nothing positive to say about anybody. Shot morale down, said an official who spoke on condition of anonymity. He went on to say, Stephen Miller wants everybody arrested. Why aren't you at Home Depot? Why aren't you at 7-Eleven? The official recited. So one of them spoke up and was like, because we're going after the criminals. And he's like, I don't give a fuck about the criminals. And like every time we see Homan on TV, he says we're only going after the criminals. So that's what we've been doing. And Miller's like, I don't give a fuck about that. And then Kristi Noem came in and is like, you guys are doing an okay job, but you could be doing a better job. Because they're not deporting enough people. Meanwhile, just so everybody's clear, the reason that ICE can't move more people is because they don't have enough budget for that. Because there's like beds, there's deportation, there's
coming soon.
All that stuff. There's a limit, and they could have had more money to deport more people if they'd have gone along with the bill that Langford wrote, but they voted it down because they wanted a juicy election. I mean, it's like, hooray!
Well, there's money in the big beautiful bill for it.
That's right. Sure, that hasn't passed yet. Which apparently Marge was all upset because she didn't read any of it. And now we've got to the big fight, which is that, quick aside, the head of FEMA was like, there's an Atlantic hurricane season. He didn't know that, which is pretty funny. Then he said it was a joke. It wasn't a joke. So that's good. Okay, Elon and Trump, they're fighting. Elon says that the big, beautiful bill, not beautiful, not good. He says that it is, there you go.
Perfect.
He says that it's all kinds of terrible, and he wants everybody to destroy it. And then Trump was like, you just don't like it because it takes away the subsidies for your electric cars.
Well, yes.
And then Elon was like, that's not it, but I'm going to ground all my rockets that you need for all your satellites and the military and all that. And then Trump was like, we're going to cancel all your government space contracts and everything else. And then Elon's like, well, you're in the Epstein report. And it's like, whoa, okay. So they're in a full-on, like, Twitter battle right now. It's delicious. So have you been?
Yeah, I've read. I've read
updates, Brian.
Yeah, there's some. I'm trying to bring them up now because it's some of the. I swear, it's almost like the Cardi B and Offset type of scenario, because those two just do. Ever since this whole thing came out, so one of them was this. So a report says, like you said, I'm very disappointed with Elon. This is from Trump. I've helped him a lot. He knew the inner workings of the bill better than anybody sitting here. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden, he had a problem, and he only developed the problem. Blah blah blah. Musk tweeted on his platform X, false. This bill was never shown to me even once and was passed in the dead of night so fast that almost no one in Congress could ever read it. And then another one from Trump's social truth bullshit. He posted the easiest way to save money in our budget billions and billions of dollars is to terminate Elon's government subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it. Elon replied,
Always the clone's fault.
yes, Elon replied, in light of the president's statement about cancellation of my government contracts, SpaceX will begin decommissioning its Dragon spacecraft immediately. So this thing,
those are the lifeboats that can bring everybody home from the ISS.
Right.
So those two, all it is to me is just two big babies who have a tiff, and since he's out of Doge and all that stuff, so again, these are incompetent people doing incompetent jobs, and they don't know what the hell they're doing, and all they're doing is fighting over something they don't understand. So that's how
I'm shocked it took this long for them to.
Yeah, this is took
go
way
after
too
each
long.
other.
I mean, and it's also, I guess the culture wars are stronger than, and I guess that you're already the richest man in the world, you don't really care about money, but it does seem that he would have more care for his companies. And if you had did the same investment in Kamala Harris, I think we were talking, I mean, you could be up another $40 billion because you could basically dictate let's just say it was the same.
Tesla would have been positioned to be way more profitable in a Democratic administration.
Yeah. And it's clear he's realized this now.
Yeah.
But the problem is going to be I don't think there's anything he can do now to regain like the liberal, and like there's been a lot of commentary online about like, well, just because he's doing this shit now, like don't like it doesn't change what he's done, and I think that's gonna stick to him. I mean, the Tesla price just today was insane.
So Tesla stock lost like 15% or something like that, which is crazy. There's already Elon's in trouble with shareholders for doing crazy shit and tanking their investments. Here's another example where like his behavior has harmed.
Like he should be removed. You would argue he could be removed from these.
Well, there was a move to do that, and he beat it, but you could see that resurfacing.
Yeah.
He's
not holding down the fiduciary responsibility, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So the board could easily cite that as a reason to remove him and get a vote, but so far that hasn't happened. It could happen. The whole thing is just, I mean, it's delicious, right? It's fun. Watch this, enjoy this. Watching them eat their own. We saw this the whole first administration, and they were able to kind of keep it out of the papers until now.
Yeah.
For 150 days or something like that. But
it was eventually going to break.
Yeah. There's too many. We talked about that on this show several times, that these people are too self-interested and too greedy, and they're eventually going to get into their own personal stuff, and they're going to fight with each other. Right. Elon and Rubio had it out. Elon and Vivek had it out in the beginning of Doge. Like, Elon's pretty toxic. Nobody likes the guy. He's weird. He does all the drugs. He's mean. Right. He's shitty. He's a racist. There's a lot of things, right? Nobody likes Trump. Even the people who say they like him or work with him, they don't actually like him. Trump burns everybody that he ever gets close. He uses everybody up. Yep, Elon somehow thought he was immune to that. Now he's realizing that he got used, and he's pissed off about it. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just great.
Yeah, and
before you get into this, I'm kind of concerned about the poor South Africans that just got here. I mean, are they going to be sticking around? And they
can go to Elon's compound in Texas.
There you go. That's where they'll go.
Star City, or whatever the fuck it's called.
There's also some chatter about Trump trying to denaturalize Elon and deport him.
Yeah, Steve Bannon was out today this afternoon with that. And Steve Bannon saying to nationalize SpaceX, which is like, what?
That sounds like communism to me.
I know. I was like, what? Okay, yeah.
Okay.
All right. It seems kind of, but I mean, it's actually kind of scary, right? Because if Trump decides to weaponize the government against Elon Musk, talk about throwing a lot of shit in the blender like that. I mean, there's unfortunately, right, the United States government since 2008 has really allowed a lot of his companies, right? Taxpayers have financed his companies, right? And again, feel all you want about the man, but he popularized electric vehicles, right?
Sure.
He made it what it is today. And a lot of people also behind him that helps with
And
that.
the charging infrastructure and all that.
Yes. I mean, SpaceX, the ability for them. I mean, it did just retrieve people from the International Space Station. It also, I mean, these rockets being able to re-land and be
every 2
reused.
weeks.
Yeah.
It's very efficient and it works really well. I mean, the SpaceX stuff is monumental for mankind. It is true.
Yeah. And he's going to shoot himself in the foot by, again, because you made a very bad bet.
Well, he's kind of running into this thing that we've talked about with the Bundys and the gun nuts, and they think that they're somehow going to fight off the U.S. government. And the problem is that even somebody with that much money, is a tiny little pawn in the way of the federal government.
Right.
And so if Trump wants to use the apparatus of government for a personal vengeance against Elon Musk, he can do that pretty easily. And even Elon can't fight back.
Right.
So, and I think he's coming to terms with that. I mean, we're watching this happen in real time. Last week, the story was about how depressed he looked in these interviews, talking about Doge was harder than he thought and all of this. Now it's like, oh man, you're realizing that you stirred up a hornet's nest and you don't have any control over it. And you're grieving that loss in front of all of us while you're peeing your pants over all the ketamine that you did. It's man, what are we? I'm supposed to have joy in the fall of my enemies and stuff, but this is very funny. Very funny.
There's going to be economical impacts of this as well too. His fingerprints are all over
this, and we are. I want to say entering, but we're not entering. We're deep in the FO part of the FAFO equation, and it's going to get deeper, and it's going to be devastating. We're going to find out tomorrow. It's first Friday tomorrow. We're going to get the job reports.
Yeah, we know. I mean, I know that they're not going to be good.
Well, first-time unemployments were today, and they were sort of in line with where they have been. So maybe not. I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll find out tomorrow.
And if it's not this one, it'll be the next one.
It'll be the next one. That's right. Yeah. Well, there you go. So stay tuned to Twitter. You're going to have to tune in to watch there, or just get on Blue Sky and wait for people to.
The hits. They'll put the hits. That's what I get with my TikToks. I wait for people to look at to send me the greatest hits.
Right. They might screenshot you the choice stuff.
Right.
And put it on the Blue Sky. But one way or the other, stay tuned. It's going to be great. Which means we've come to the end of the show. Hooray!
Yippee!
Yeah, 2.5 hours into it. So we want to say thank you to our sponsor, menno-start.com. The dash is for Hot Flash. Thanks to Scott Anderson for being a fabulous guest, Dave.
Great interview. Yeah,
he talked about a lot of things, and I mean, look, he did have the accent. It was cool.
He did. It was good.
And we learned a lot. So, and I feel smarter now. Also a little sad. That's what this show's for.
Yeah.
Also, thanks to our radio partners, PBS, NPR, and your local public media stations. Thanks to NOTN for keeping us on for another week, maybe. Don't know. Thanks to our home on the interwebs, coplaymedia.com. And thanks, as always, to our family here at Beltway Radio for making us sound as smooth as Canadian wildfire smoky whiskey. That was a stretch.
It's bad.
Yeah, sorry about that. All right, where can everybody get you on the socials?
Hey, you can find me on Blue Sky at DC Cortez.
Right, and you can find me and the show on the Twitter at ChipChatRR. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram at RipChipChat. And you can find me on Blue Sky with my old Twitter handle at Chef Chip, where I've got several hundred followers now. Hooray! And you can catch us every Thursday night at 9:30 here on Beltway Radio and beyond. I'm Chip. That's Tez. Brian's somewhere in the background. You're listening to Chip Chat on Beltway Radio and beyond.
Sweeps.
Street balls.
bar, it's not beer, it's a public. It's hard to get something to rhyme with this subject. If we get famous, we can give a shout out to Brian. To get us out on time is what he be trying. The show is like a custom feathered avian that knows words. How can we stay late when our guest is Illy Bird? In conclusion, the message is to go out and serve folks, whether that's through art, music, or if you just tell jokes. Seek to medicate your ears, hope you eradicate your fears. Thanks for sticking with us through all these years.